Chapter 261. The bell rang. The surrounding void began to distort and collapse at a speed visible to the naked eye. In the blink of an eye, it turned into countless spatial turbulences that erupted with a terrifying destructive force. The tiger's soul slashed the ancient bell heavily with its saber. Waves of sharp saber chi poured out and struck the ancient bell, causing it to ring continuously. The sound of the bell was like the morning bell in an ancient temple. It was quiet and ethereal, but it contained a power that could bring vitality to all things. Countless gods and demons slashed down with their sabers, but they were completely blocked by the countless flowers and trees that burst forth from the ancient bell. Immediately, the countless flowers and trees that burst forth from the surface of the ancient bell were cut into pieces, creating a mess. The simultaneous attack of thousands of gods and demons was equivalent to saying that the ancient bell had suffered a full blow from thousands of nascent soul cultivators in a short period of time. Its power was so great that it was almost impossible to estimate. Although the ancient bell was indeed a treasure with boundless power, at that moment, the power that true Lord Ku Rong could unleash was extremely limited, and it was impossible for him to unleash its full power. Under the protection of the ancient bell, his stiff face suddenly turned pale. His body trembled violently as if he had been struck by lightning. It was as if he had suffered countless heavy blows in an instant. He opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood like a sharp arrow. It landed on the ground and pierced a hole of unknown depth. There was an indescribable expression in his eyes. Perfected Lord Ku Rong glared at Di Shirtian fiercely. He opened his mouth and spat out another mouthful of blood essence. However, this time, he did not spit it on the ground but on the ancient bell above his head. The moment the blood essence landed on the ancient bell, it was immediately absorbed by the bell. For a moment, the surface of the ancient bell burst forth with a layer of golden divine light that shone brightly. A tyrannical force erupted from the ancient bell. Clang! The ancient bell vibrated violently. The golden divine light on the ancient bell suddenly expanded outward and expanded. An immeasurable force erupted in an instant and actually repelled the tiger's soul on the ancient bell. Bang! Di Shirtian could only feel a terrifying force that he had never felt before coming from the tiger's soul in his hand. This force contained boundless vitality and caused the tiger's soul to collapse at once. However, Sakra did not hesitate as he shouted. From the vortex formed by the power of desire beside him, waves of power of desire crazily poured into Tiger's soul in an unending stream. The tiger's soul burst forth with incomparably dazzling saber light again. Following the momentum of the collapse, the saber turned into a slanted slash and slashed down. Clang! Perfected Lord Ku Rong spat out another mouthful of blood essence. A hint of viciousness flashed in his eyes as he pointed the withered glory staff in his hand in front of him. In an instant, the ground surged and a sapling emerged. The sapling grew from a small sapling into a towering tree in front of him in an instant. He glared fiercely at Di Shirtian and said resentfully, "Di Shirtian, I'll remember you. I'll settle this debt with you sooner or later. You want to kill me? Even that old fart know-it-all couldn't kill me back then. You're not worthy." As he spoke, his body crashed into the tree in front of him. Strangely enough, once his body came into contact with the tree, it was like a drop of water touching the ocean. His entire body strangely sank into the tree without a sound. Bang! Just as he entered the tree, the tiger's soul had already appeared in front of the tree and easily split the extremely thick tree into two. After splitting the tree, perfected Lord Ku Rong's figure was nowhere to be seen. It was as if he had vanished without a trace in an instant. It was truly strange. Would divine escape. When Chen Shi saw this from the side, he could not help but frown slightly and exclaim in surprise. Heaven and earth were made up of yin, yang, and the five elements. In ancient times, a great divine power created a five elements divine escape technique based on the characteristics of the five elements. This escape technique was divided into 5 categories, which were the E-Wood Divine Escape, Gung Metal Divine Escape, Li Fire Divine Escape, Wutu Divine Escape, and Een Water Divine Escape. However, most people called it the Wood Escape Technique, Metal Escape Technique, and so on. There was a difference between the orthodox and the simplified version. The 5 elements divine escape technique that was passed down today was far inferior to the 5 elements divine escape technique from ancient times. This was because the former had great restrictions, and there were many places where it was difficult to escape through. On the other hand, the 5 elements divine escape technique could be used as long as one was in the 5 elements. One escape would allow one to travel thousands of miles. Those with high cultivation could travel tens of thousands of miles or hundreds of thousands of miles in a flash. Chen Shi was surprised because he could tell that perfected Lord Ku Rong was using the legendary E-Wood Divine Escape technique that was lost in history. Once his body came into contact with a wood attribute object, he would immediately escape thousands of miles away. It had to be said that an old monster like him, who had lived for God knows how many years, would have all kinds of secret techniques and divine abilities that were beyond anyone's expectations. Humph! A glint flashed across Di Shirtian's eyes. He knew that with perfected Lord Ku Rong's ability, there were definitely many ways for him to escape. With all kinds of methods, it would be quite difficult to kill him. At least, there was no such possibility now. Clang! He held Tiger's soul horizontally in his hand and stood in midair. He turned his head abruptly and swept his gaze outside the valley. He saw that the vast sky outside the valley had been completely covered by a huge net. It had bound the entire world. Below it were the demon kings and other demon beasts of the southern wilderness. They were all trapped inside. Meanwhile, the cultivators who were controlling the net were leisurely outside. They were either shooting out countless sword lights with their flying swords or taking out various Dharma treasures to smash them into the net. All kinds of powerful Dharma spells were constantly stirring up the air, and terrifying rumbles were heard. The talismans that filled the sky flickered with spiritual light and drew on the power of heaven and earth, bursting out all the Dharma spells sealed inside. For a time, the rumbles inside were incessant. Wind blades and fire lights were incessant. At the same time, the furious roars of the Black Ape King and the others shook the surrounding ground non-stop. Despicable, despicable and shameless cultivators. Everyone, let's display our abilities together and smash this broken net into pieces. I, Old Black, don't believe that a mere net can trap us. Waves of Yao Qi surged out from the Black Ape King's body as he roared loudly. That's right. If we don't use our strength, we'll really be looked down upon by this group of cultivators. Even though Medusa was bound in an area by the net, she was still calm and composed. She swept her gaze above her head slightly, revealing an indifferent and disdainful expression. You don't have to do anything. They're all mine. It's just a net. Let's see if it can block the sharpness of my tiger soul. Break! Just as the demon kings were about to start using their innate remarkable abilities, a voice that seemed to be able to freeze the air into ice suddenly came from the void. Looking towards the source of the voice, Sakra soared through the air. He didn't use wind manipulation. Just like that, he stood in the air naturally. Step by step, he stepped in the air. In the air that was originally nothing, strange ripples actually appeared under his feet. With every step he took, the air would vibrate. He took 7 steps in a row and stepped in the air. His body left the valley and appeared outside the valley. His eyes suddenly shrank, turning into narrow slits. Rays of cold light shot out from the slits and instantly landed on Wang Fenger, who was in the lead. Beside her, there was a vermilion bird covered in flames. It was the size of an adult. The temperature around it had reached an astonishing height. Kill! Traces of intense hatred fell on Wang Fenger, and an uncontrollable urge surged in his mind. Kill her, she was the one who took Mother. I must kill her. A threatening light shot out, and he unhesitatingly let out a cold shout filled with killing intent. Without hesitation, the tiger soul in his hand chopped down on her head. Rays of light shot out from the saber, and endless saber chi shot out, shaking the void. The moment the saber struck, it was as if the heavens had sent down a heavenly punishment. It was as fast as lightning. A powerful aura pressed down on Wang Fenger's body like a mountain. Vermilion bird. When Wang Fenger saw this, a trace of panic flashed in her heart. However, she still shouted, and the vermilion bird beside her immediately flapped its wings and took flight. Countless feathers flew out from its body and circled around it. Its entire body seemed to have turned into a blazing sun, releasing endless flames. It faced the tiger soul that was descending at lightning speed without any hesitation. It was evolved from a bead and had no will of its own. Whatever Wang Fenger wanted to control, it would do as she wished. Bang! At this moment, the tiger soul, the current Di Shirtian, was mixed with the might of the heavens and the earth. The strength in his body had reached an unimaginable level. On top of his head, there was a vortex of desire that was continuously channeling the power of desire into his body. With every swing of the saber, the power contained in the saber had reached an inestimable height. The mighty vermilion bird was split into two by the tiger soul's saber. With a whimper, its entire body disappeared, and a pearl that was split into two fell to the ground. Ah! Wang Fenger shrieked in shock. Her expression changed drastically, and she threw out all the Dharma treasures in her hands. There were no less than 10 flying swords, spirit talismans, and all kinds of Dharma treasures that were thrown at the tiger soul at the same time. However, at this moment, Sakrashur Tian was invincible. Wherever the tiger soul went, no matter what it was, no matter if it was a magic treasure, a flying sword, or even an earth-shattering spell, under the tiger soul, they were all instantly crushed by the incomparably sharp saber chi. Demon tiger, don't you want to know where your mother is? Just as the tiger soul was about to hit its head, a loud shout was heard. However, the tiger's soul only paused for a moment before it immediately slashed down like a bolt of lightning. Clang! The tiger's soul pointed diagonally downward. The clear look in its eyes was gradually devoured by countless desires in a frenzy. Its consciousness seemed too insignificant under the vast and boundless desire. However, even so, the last bit of clarity in its mind was still filled with killing intent. It swept its murderous aura toward the others. Ah, eldest senior sister is dead. Everyone, let's fight it out with him. A cultivator nearby saw how Wang Fenger was split into two, and the blood essence in her body was completely devoured. His expression was filled with grief and indignation. He moved his hand and was about to release his flying sword. Clack! To be continued. If you want to know what happened next, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 262. He took a step in the air, and circles of ripples spread out under his feet. Die. He did not even look the other party in the eye. With a flick of his wrist, Tiger Soul swept out in a casual manner. The Tiger Soul's saber gleam, which was several hundred feet long, drew a semicircle in front of him. Countless saber gleams filled the air, and they were so sharp that they could not be matched. Wherever the saber gleams went, nothing could block them. Their flying swords were cut in half, followed by their bodies. The area covered by the saber light was extremely large, and there was no way to avoid it. There were actually 3 cultivators who died to the Tiger Soul, and their blood essence was completely devoured by the Tiger Soul. An extremely dense murderous aura continuously gathered in his body. Patter! Endless coldness overflowed from his body, and he took another step forward. Every step was as if he was stepping on flat ground, and the sound of his footsteps was powerful. In an instant, he took 2 steps forward and slashed out Tiger Soul again. A vast and boundless aura swept through heaven and earth, and under this aura and the killing power of the saberlight, the demonic beasts were slaughtered like pigs. Core formation cultivators were like pigs and sheep in a slaughterhouse. With one slash, he killed them one by one. It was as if he was cutting up melons and vegetables. There was nothing that could stop his sharpness. In the blink of an eye, 8 myriad beasts' sect disciples fell one after another. Not a single drop of blood was left in their bodies. Break. Tiger's soul swung out again, and with its sharpness, it broke a huge hole in the incomparably tough net. Although he didn't know what material the net was made of, it couldn't resist the terrifying sharpness of Tiger's soul. In addition, no one was controlling it anymore, so it was cut open on the spot. Ha ha! The Black Ape King rushed out of the hole and looked at Chertion. He laughed loudly and said, "Brother D, I, Old Black, am impressed by you. You dared to transcend your tribulation at this time, and you even succeeded. You killed the cultivators so cleanly. Impressive, impressive. I can kill 1 or 2 of these cultivators with some time and my life on the line, but it's not as easy as you. My southern wilderness has another powerhouse. It seems that I have to find time to prepare for my tribulation. After so many years, it's time for me to transform. I remember that the heavenly demon mystic realm is very close. Every little bit of strength counts." The red-crowned crane king looked at Chertion and sighed. As a demonic beast king, almost all of them had the ability to transcend their tribulations at any time. It was just that they all wanted to build a more solid foundation. "That's right. It's time to transcend the tribulation." Golden Lion King nodded. His voice was very indifferent, but it contained an aura of confidence. The rest of the Monster Kings said at the same time. All of them had the intention to start their tribulations. Chertion, how are you? Are you hurt? Medusa swept her gaze over Sakra. After Sakra killed all the cultivators who had come to invade with the speed of a thunderbolt, he stood in the air without moving. He held Tiger's soul tightly in his hand and a multicolored glow appeared in his eyes. It continuously flickered and flickered. Occasionally, it would be retracted and he would return to his normal state. However, this state only lasted for a few short moments before it was once again replaced by rays of divine light. They intertwined continuously and were completely entangled. In his mind, there were countless voices and all kinds of thoughts spewing out fiercely from the bottom of his heart. Desires, desires, and all kinds of desires. In an instant, it was as if a door of desire had opened in the bottom of his heart. This door had been sealed and could be controlled in the past. However, now that the door was suddenly opened, the various desires hidden in the bottom of his heart were no longer restricted. All kinds of thoughts in the past were expanding and strengthening without limit. Any intelligent creature would have 7 emotions and 6 desires. At this moment, the various desires in Chertion's body expanded without limit and poured into his mind. This time, due to the enormous power of desire, Sakra had no choice but to risk his life and create 13 desire demonic veins. He had completely created all the demonic veins in his body. This action was something that had never happened before since ancient times. However, the danger involved had also reached an inestimable level. Originally, he could create 1 demon meridian at a time. That way, he could use the time before creating the demon meridians to suppress and familiarize himself with the former power of desire and reduce their influence on his body to the lowest level. He could then use other means to control the influence of those desires, just like what he did before. However, due to perfected Lord Ku Rong's intervention, his plan was ruined on the spot, and he had no choice but to create all the demon meridians. However, once he created the demon meridians, he could still suppress it with his mind that had been tempered over the years and prevent the desires in his body from exploding on the spot. Therefore, when his mind was fighting against the desires, his mind could still remain clear for the time being. That was why he could launch a fierce attack on perfected Lord Ku Rong, Wang Fenger, and the others. He killed the 8 cultivators on the spot with his saber. Once the enemies were dead, the anger in his chest began to dissipate. In addition, the power of desire from the outside world was madly surging into his body almost all the time. When it entered his body, it also brought about the endless desires of all living beings in the world. On the spot, the suppressed desires in his body exploded completely. This time, it wasn't just one kind of desire. Instead, it was the 7 emotions and 6 desires. At the same time, all of them erupted and poured into his mind. How powerful was this power that was mixed with the desires of all living beings in the world? All along, Sakra's state of mind, that could be said to be firm and resolute, was simply like a broken boat in the vast ocean. Almost in the blink of an eye, it was hit by the surging waves of desire and sank. In his mind, countless desires were intertwined. Seeing De Chertien's completely abnormal situation, Medusa frowned slightly. After all, it was De Chertien who killed those cultivators in a domineering manner. Now that he was in trouble, she could not just stand by and watch. She wanted to go over and see what was going on. Medusa, don't touch him. Now that his mind is fighting against his desires, once you touch him and affect him, I'm afraid he'll be consigned to eternal damnation. Just as Medusa's jade-like hand was about to reach out, an elegant voice suddenly stopped her. In the valley, she was walking in the air, quickly approaching Indra. She swept a glance at his body, and when she looked at his eyes, she saw the colors formed when countless desires were entangled with each other. He thought to himself, De Chertien has really created the pulse of desire. However, from the looks of it, true Lord Ku Rong's 100 Desires demonic orb must have had bad effects on him. Desire has always been the most difficult force in the world to understand. Even in the fairies' inheritance, it was very feared. Now, I don't know what accident has happened to him. She saw De Chertien create the pulse of desire with his own eyes and knew that he cultivated the most mysterious power of desire. Now that there was an accident, the consequences must be quite serious. At the crucial moment, she did not know much about the power of desire, let alone what happened in the tribulation clouds back then. She wanted to help, but there was no way she could. However, in his eyes, he could see the myriad of emotions of life. Endless desires, happiness, anger, sorrow, fear, shock, and so on. They circulated endlessly in his eyes, and each of them had a terrifying state of mind that could cause people to sink into them. Looking at his eyes, even her mind seemed to be affected. Together, she was brought into the terrifying realm of desire. What? How can this be? Medusa and the other monster kings exclaimed in unison. Consort Baihua, you can't just ignore it. You must save our king. The Myriad Demon Valley can't be without a king. Nothing must happen to the king. Hearing this conclusion, the demonic beasts that came with Sakra had a huge change in expression. Baisusu kowtowed to Shi on the spot and begged loudly. Consort Baihua, please save our king. Chihua, Baiwe, and the others all knelt down. Each of them had different degrees of injuries on their bodies, and blood kept flowing down. However, they did not care at all and just begged desperately. They looked at Shi as if they had seen a life-saving straw. Your king cultivates the power of desire, and Shi doesn't understand the power of desire. Right now, there's nothing I can do. Perhaps we can only wait for his mind to overcome his desire. If that happens, he should be able to wake up. Shi's words were also filled with a deep sense of powerlessness. De Chertien was walking on an unprecedented path, and it would be difficult for outsiders to help him. Unless, at this moment, there was someone who could play a calming divine song like the heart-cleansing Bodhi song. Perhaps he could still maintain a trace of clarity because of it. However, this time, it was all his desires that had erupted. An ordinary song would probably not have much of an effect. Whoosh! Just as she looked at De Chertien again. Suddenly, from Sakra's two eyes, two multicolored, incomparably fantastic divine lights suddenly shot out, instantly covering Qin-shi in divine light. At the same time, he opened his mouth and spat out a multicolored fog towards her face. Not good! Qin-shi was standing right in front of Sakra. It could be said that he was close at hand, and when he was sizing him up, he wasn't prepared for such an accident to happen. Under the two divine lights, he instantly felt that his mind was fixed, and all kinds of desires that he had never had before emerged in his mind. After inhaling a mouthful of fog, there was a strange fragrance in the fog. Suddenly, he felt his mind go into a trance. For some reason, an intense heat rose in his body, and his mind was filled with thoughts. There was a kind of uncontrollable desire that surged out like a flood. Pa! At this moment, a strong and powerful arm suddenly wrapped around her waist, and all the strength in her body seemed to disappear without a trace in an instant. Her body became incomparably soft as she was pulled into a heavy embrace. The strong scent of a man wafted into her nostrils. To be continued. If you want to know what happened next, please go to www.chidian.com to read more chapters. Support the author, support legal reading. Chapter 263. The sun rose and the moon set. Day and night alternated. This was the law of heaven and earth. It was the foundation of all things reincarnation. In the east, a ray of golden light shot towards heaven and earth, stubbornly dispersing the surrounding darkness. Ray after ray, when countless rays of light shot out, the darkness had already begun to quietly disappear in the blink of an eye. A wisp of purple gas rose from the east. The golden sun shone in the forest and fell on the morning dew between the leaves. The dewdrops blossomed with countless rays of light. It was truly magical and beautiful, causing people to unconsciously feel relaxed and happy. The morning sun always brought that indescribable vitality. It meant that a new day had begun. A new reincarnation had reappeared. All things had begun to glow with vitality. The morning sun shone at the entrance of the cave, bringing a ray of light to the cave. At this moment, in the cave, the red luan fog that filled the cave last night had completely disappeared and turned into nothingness. In the innermost part of the cave, Qin-shi, who was dressed in white, opened her eyes and stared at Di-Shir-Tian, who was still lying on the fur and had not regained consciousness. On his body, there was not a single piece of clothing, and he was completely naked. On the fur, an astonishing plum blossom was blooming beautifully. Seeing it, Qin-shi's eyes were filled with intense hatred. A ray of light flashed in his hand. The surrounding spiritual energy of heaven and earth surged and quickly condensed into a cold and threatening sharp sword. With a twist of his pure wrist, the sword flashed and was about to pierce Di-Shir-Tian's throat. Chi! However, just as the sword was about to pierce into his body, it inexplicably stopped. There was a hint of struggle on his face, which seemed abnormally complicated. This happened again and again, but in the end, he was still unable to withdraw this sword. Di-Shir-Tian, a voice filled with resentment was softly spat out from her mouth. It could be said that all kinds of feelings gushed out from her heart. The scene yesterday, after waking up, one by one, appeared in her mind. No matter how she imagined, she would never have thought that the pure and clean body she had preserved for countless years would be ruined by Di-Shir-Tian. Thinking about the scene at that time, she still felt like she was in a dream. She actually lost her virginity in such a situation and even let out such a shameful moan. When she woke up and saw that she was entangled with him, that kind of feeling made her have an impulse to kill him on the spot. However, she also knew that the matter at that time was probably not Sakra's original intention. It was also because he lost his mind due to his desire that he did such a thing. It could be said that it was an unintentional act. Thinking back to when she first heard that heroic song, her heart trembled inexplicably. Every time she swung her sword, she was unable to stab into his throat. But what happened last night was enough for her to kill him 100 times over. In particular, after she woke up, she discovered something that filled her heart with a strong sense of hatred. Tion, I know you're awake. Stop pretending. When she swung her sword again, she was unable to land it. A complicated expression appeared on Chen-Shi's face. She did not know why she could not do it. She took a deep breath and a layer of frost appeared on her face. The aura on his body suddenly became abnormally cold. She said coldly, "Ha ha!" Tion laughed bitterly and opened his eyes. With a wave of his hand, he put on a black robe and covered his body. His eyes wandered, not daring to look into Chen-Shi's eyes. He said with a bitter smile, "Why didn't you kill me? You know I won't fight back." Not knowing when, his voice became unusually hoarse. Since Chen-Shi woke up, he woke up as well. However, the scene of last night appeared in his mind, making him feel ashamed to face her again. He could only lie on the spot and pretend to be asleep without moving. He clearly felt that Chen-Shi had swung her sword repeatedly, and he had no intention of stopping it. Thinking of what he did last night, even if his mind was bewitched, he could not deny that the things he did and the mistakes he made him feel ashamed to see Chen-Shi again. Especially after knowing the situation in his body, he smiled bitterly. The debt he owed to Chen-Shi could not be repaid even with all the water in the river. If Chen-Shi really wanted to kill him, he would not resist at all. Clang! The sword in Chen-Shi's hand, which was condensed from spiritual energy, was stabbed into the ground. She looked coldly at Tion. If one looked closely, one could see a trace of struggle and complexity in her eyes, but it was all hidden under the indifference. She stared at his face for a long time, then heavily spat out a sentence, "From now on, I don't want to see you again." Chen-Shi seemed to be making an incomparably important decision. There wasn't the slightest bit of emotion in her words. It was as if the Sakura in front of her was a stranger that couldn't be any stranger. With a wave of her jade-like hand, the fur on the ground fell into her hand. She then turned around and walked out of the cave. Wait! Just as Chen-Shi turned and walked to the entrance of the cave, Tion took a deep breath and said hoarsely, "The mistake has been made. No matter if you want to kill me or torture me, I will not have the slightest complaint. However, if possible, I hope to take care of you. Give me a chance to make up for this mistake. No matter what, things have already come to this point. I will not shirk the responsibility I have to bear. Even if we do not have feelings for each other, I will pursue you in my own way. I know the day you are willing to forgive me. There is no relationship between us." Chen-Shi coldly spat out these words. Her body flashed, and in the blink of an eye she left the cave. She did not know where she went, but where she was standing, 2 sparkling drops of water fell from the sky. Pata! The moment they fell to the ground, Tion reached out and grabbed them. Opening his palm, he saw the sparkling drops of water in his hand, and a trace of bitterness uncontrollably welled up in his heart. He took out the god of wine gourd and drank a few mouthfuls. In the past, he drank spiritual wine that had endless flavors. Now there was only a deep bitterness left in his mouth. When Tion heard the last sentence, a trace of bitterness appeared at the corner of his mouth. He hammered his head hard and sat on the ground. Suddenly, he raised his head and shot 2 hate-filled eyes. "Perfected Lord Ku Rong, I will settle this score with you sooner or later. If I don't kill you, how can the hatred in my heart be eliminated?" Although his mind was lost when his desires erupted yesterday, when he woke up today, everything that happened yesterday appeared clearly in his mind. Even the day before when he kidnapped Chen-Shi and did those beastly things to her were still vivid in his mind. To be honest, he would rather not know anything. Then, he would not have so many troubles now. The source of all of this was true Lord Ku Rong. If he had not thrown 100 Desires demonic pearl into the tribulation cloud, he would not have been forced into a corner and had to take the risk of forming his 7 emotions and 6 desires to form 13 demon veins. If he did not form all the demon veins, that desire would not have erupted, and it would not have invaded his mind. It made him lose his mind, and that was why he did such an irreparable wrong. Chunshi, oh Chunshi, I Deshirtion owe you this time. I'm afraid I won't be able to repay you in my lifetime. Indeed, only he knew how much he owed. If it was an ordinary woman, after yesterday, Deshirtion's state of mind still wouldn't have any improvement and would only vent out a kind of desire. However, he was sober and wasn't confused by that boundless desire again. What's more, he didn't sink into that boundless desire again and enter that state of eternal damnation. Why? When he woke up, he realized this strange thing. When he immersed himself into his body to investigate, he felt a deep sense of guilt towards Chunshi. He walked the path of ancient demon cultivation. In his body, he formed all the 13 demon veins in one go, forming a complete meridian network diagram in his body. It was also because of these demon veins that the terrifying scene of his mind being eroded by desire occurred. There were all kinds of desires that were almost endless. It was as if he was facing the ocean. Even now, that feeling still caused him to feel lingering fear. Under such circumstances, his mind was still eroded, and there was almost no way to save him. However, in this world, there was always a what-if. Chun-Shi was an exotic flower that evolved from the infinite essence of heaven and earth with infinite creation. It was a divine flower, and its origin contained the true essence of an instant and eternity. An instant and eternity were connected to time. It could be said to be extremely heaven-defying. The essence accumulated in the flower for countless years could be said to be a kind of supreme divine essence. It was a supreme treasure. It was the purest. If he could absorb all of the light of dawn in the future, he would be able to advance by leaps and bounds. In a few hundred years, he would easily reach that inconceivable realm and become an unparalleled expert. He would be able to move unhindered in the purple-gold continent. If he absorbed all of the divine essence in it, he would probably be able to increase his cultivation by tens of thousands of years. This could be said to be the most precious thing in Chun-Shi's body. However, just last night, when Chun-Shi had just merged with his original body, he was taken by Deshirtion. Therefore, most of the divine essence in his body flowed along with the combination of yin and yang. It automatically operated the dual cultivation method and flowed into Deshirtion's body. At that time, when it entered his body, it immediately clashed with the power of desire that filled his body. Naturally, it also felt that something bad was happening in Sakra Heaven's body. This divine splendor immediately erupted with a shocking power, automatically evolving the heaven-defying divine ability, fleeting youth. In one fell swoop, the power of desire in his body was sealed into the demonic veins in his body. A total of 10 veins were sealed, and the connection between the demonic veins and the power of desire between heaven and earth was completely cut off. Only the joy demonic vein, the sorrow demonic vein, and the taste demonic vein were left. The 3 demonic veins were unimpeded. It was as good as new. This seal could be said to have saved Deshirtion's life on the spot. The joy and sorrow were entangled and contended with each other. The taste demonic vein could also be controlled, and finally, his mind returned to normal. To be continued. If you want to know what will happen next, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author, support legal reading. Chapter 264. It had to be said that even though he had made a huge mistake this time, his crisis had been completely resolved. Of the 13 demonic veins, 10 had been sealed. In other words, the source of those desires had been sealed. Naturally, the remaining 3 demonic veins would not be able to invade his mind. Only then did he come to his senses. Moreover, the benefits he had gained this time were so great that it was beyond Deshirtion's estimation. First, the 13 demonic veins represented the 7 emotions and 6 desires. The 13 desires represented the 13 demonic veins. Now, all of them had been molded in one go and connected to form a complete meridian diagram in his body, which could be circulated to all parts of his body. It could be said to be extremely miraculous. He had accomplished everything in one fell swoop. Although it was true that the demonic veins had been sealed by Chen Shi's instant youth divine power, it was not a complete seal. It could be opened again. It was like an ordinary person who wanted to cultivate the genuine qi of martial arts. He had to open up the conception and governing vessels from the minor circulation to the major circulation. During this process, he had to use his genuine qi to open up the meridians in his body bit by bit. Every time a meridian was opened up, his genuine qi would increase. If all the meridians in his body were connected together, it would be the innate reversal. Now, Di Shirtian's meridians had been sealed. However, it was not a complete seal. Instead, he could open up the sealed meridians one by one, just like those Jianghu people in the secular world. Moreover, in these 10 sealed meridians, there was also the massive amount of desire power that he had absorbed before, as well as almost half of the divine power in Chen Shi's body. Every time a meridian was opened up, he would obtain the essence sealed in it. If there were no accidents, his cultivation would definitely increase by several times in an instant. If he absorbed all of it, his cultivation would increase by tens of thousands of years. Chen Shi, a figure involuntarily flashed across his mind. This figure seemed to have been imprinted in his mind unknowingly, and was difficult to get rid of. It was precisely because of this that Di Shirtian felt that he owed her too much. Even if he wanted to, he couldn't repay her. Not only had she indirectly saved his life, she had even given him more than half of the divine essence in her body. This benefit was greater than the heavens. Furthermore, he had even ruined her pure and clean body. Sigh. As soon as he thought of this, he felt indescribably distressed. Ever since he went to the 100 Flowers Valley, everything that happened afterwards was basically out of his control. Come to think of it, it was like a dream. No matter what, I can't let her down in this lifetime. This was the responsibility of a man. When he first saw Chen Shi, it was undeniable that he had a good impression of him. Now that such a thing had happened, the feelings in his heart had quietly changed. Moreover, there was an additional indescribable responsibility in his heart. Taking a deep breath, he secretly made a decision in his heart. Closing his eyes, he immersed his consciousness into his body, carefully probing the demonic veins in his body. Following the demonic veins, he entered his heart. At this moment, his heart was even stronger than before. Inside was where the demon manor was located, where his life was at stake. Out of instinct, the moment Sakura woke up, he could feel that there was a miraculous change in the demon manor. However, because of the matter with Chen Shi, he didn't have the time to pay attention to these things. Now that Chen Shi had left, if he chased after her, there would be nothing but awkwardness. With such a big change, Chen Shi would definitely not be happy. He might even trigger the resentment in her heart on the spot. This would have the opposite effect. The only thing he could do now was to give her some time to calm down, and then think of a way to beg for forgiveness. Therefore, temporarily separating was beneficial for both of them. His mind entered the Fey dwelling and carefully observed it. He discovered that the power of desire that had originally filled the Fey dwelling had completely disappeared. The enormous Fey dwelling appeared to be completely empty. At the center was a jade-like jade cauldron. The Yao cauldron continued to rotate at a seemingly constant speed. When he looked inside the cauldron, his heart was violently shocked. He was so shocked that his heart almost stopped beating. How could this be? How could my Naiden become like this? At this moment, his heart was filled with incomparable shock and astonishment. In the cauldron, there was a ball of black demon liquid that filled half the cauldron. On top of the demon liquid, there was a pitch-black black lotus. The black lotus was of the 3rd grade, in the shape of a horn. It was as clear as jade. This jade was black jade like a crystal. It was very mystical. This 3rd grade black lotus was slowly rotating, absorbing the demon liquid in the cauldron. In the middle of the black lotus, there was a black pearl embedded on it. No matter how he looked at it, this bead looked very familiar. It was similar to the inner elixir that had formed after the demonic transformation tribulation. Now, the inner elixir was perfectly connected with the black lotus. It could be said that it had completely become a part of the black lotus and was inseparable. In other words, the inner core had become a black lotus. Could it be that my union with Chun Shi caused the demon essence in my body to change? The inner core has turned into a black lotus. However, it can't be sealed like the demon vein. Sakra took a deep breath and his mind became abnormally solemn. One must know that for the demon clan, their cultivation was all on their inner elixir. Immortal cultivators cultivated the golden core, the nascent soul, and the primordial spirit. However, the demon race's cultivation was all on the inner core. Every time the inner core turned, their realm would be one level higher. Once the inner core turned 9 times, they would be one of the strongest in the world. Therefore, there could not be any problems with the inner core. Once something bad happened, it would affect one's lifetime achievement. Even if it was Sakra, he couldn't help but be secretly alarmed. He quickly immersed his mind into the black lotus. This is the power of desire? Once he immersed his consciousness into the black lotus, he could not help but feel shocked again. This was because he could clearly feel a pure power of desire flowing continuously in the black lotus. However, it was divided into 3 types: joy, sorrow, and taste. Each of them occupied a corner of the black lotus. Black lotus 3rd grade. They just happened to have 3 parts of the black lotus. Each of them occupied a grade. In the middle of the black lotus, there was a black pearl similar to the inner core. There was a pure demon essence. This was the cultivation that he had accumulated over the past few years through dual cultivation. For example, the 3 types of power of desire in the black lotus were showing signs of merging with the demon essence. However, although they seemed to be only 1 step away, it was as if they were separated by a natural moat. It seemed that something was still missing in order to truly merge. What Di Shirtian could really control now was only the demon essence that he had cultivated. If the power of desire was not merged, it would be impossible to truly use it. Black Lotus, the power of desire, Shao Qin could feel that there was an indescribable mystery hidden in the Black Lotus. He could figure out that it should have evolved on its own during the unforeseen event yesterday. Desiring to transform into a Black Lotus. The Black Lotus was divided into 3 grades, 1 grade for each. Vaguely, his mind seemed to be strongly touched. The Black Lotus had 3 grades. At this moment, there were also 3 demon veins that could operate smoothly in his body. Each type of desire had a grade. They could coexist peacefully in the Black Lotus and merge with the inner core, turning the inner core into this never-before-seen Black Lotus. There seemed to be a kind of truth of heaven and earth contained in it. There was a strange feeling in the dark. He felt that as long as he figured out some things, he could create a cultivation technique that could absorb the power of desire to cultivate. A cultivation technique that truly belonged to him. The power of desire in the Black Lotus is divided into 3 parts. I want to see what kind of mystery is hidden in it. Sakra wasn't an indecisive person. There was a change in his body. If he didn't figure it out, how could he continue to cultivate? Now that the inner core had turned into the Black Lotus, it meant that the Black Lotus was the inner core. It had replaced the inner core. Naturally, he had to figure out what kind of secrets were hidden in the Black Lotus. He made up his mind and probed into one of the Black Lotus with his mind. As he probed, his mind suddenly went into a trance. He only felt that the scene in front of him suddenly changed. Countless delicacies and fine wines appeared in front of him one after another. The alluring aroma immediately entered his nose. He immediately had the urge to pounce on them and swallow all the delicacies into his stomach. It was full of indescribable temptation. Not good. This is an illusion formed by desire. Tion suddenly came back to his senses. With his intelligence, he immediately understood that the scene in front of him was definitely an illusion formed by desire. There were all kinds of delicacies everywhere in the illusion. If he was not wrong, this illusion was formed to target one of the 7 emotions and 6 desires. In the instant he understood, he instinctively wanted to break free. It was strange, but it was not as difficult as he thought. This struggle allowed him to break free in an instant. His mind was still in the Black Lotus. There is actually an illusion in the Black Lotus, and it is formed to target one of the desires. Could it be that in order to completely merge the power of desire with the demonic spirit, I have to experience the illusion evolved by desire? As he turned around, the Sakra's mind went into overdrive. With his intelligence, he thought of a possibility within a few breaths. He had just entered the first grade of the Black Lotus, and he had fallen into an illusion. Didn't this mean that the Black Lotus was divided into 3 grades, and each grade contained 3 different illusions? Moreover, each of them was related to the power of desire. I know. Tion pondered for a moment and suddenly opened his eyes. In his eyes, there was a hint of joy of understanding. The Black Lotus is the foundation, and the illusion is the state of mind. With the foundation to bear and the state of mind to control, the two complement each other to control the power of desire. So that's it. Inspiration flashed through his mind one after another, and for a moment, all kinds of mysteries appeared in his mind. To be continued. If you want to know what will happen next, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author, support the original reading. Chapter 265. Thinking of Tion's intelligence, how astonishing was that! With just a little bit, he could immediately figure out countless possibilities. Unknowingly, he even had a feeling that he was about to touch that realm that he had always longed for. The cultivation technique in his body had a feeling that it would come out at any moment. If nothing unexpected happened, as long as he could pass the test of the illusion of desire in the Black Lotus, he would be able to master one of the power of desire. He would be able to break through the natural chasm and completely merge the power of desire with the demonic chi. At that time, he would be able to truly use the power of desire. His strength would definitely be greatly enhanced in an instant. He had a hunch that if he could really integrate all the power of desire in the 3rd grade Black Lotus into his body, his strength would definitely be promoted to an inestimable realm. However, to pass the illusion is definitely an extremely difficult thing. The illusion of desire is formed by the desires of all living beings between heaven and earth. How to pass it and how to break through it is unknown. No one knows what kind of scene it will be. But I can be sure that once I pass it, my state of mind will be astonishingly sublimated and reach an incredible realm. Only with a strong state of mind could one control the power of desire. It seems that even if I pass the illusion, I must be cautious. Back then, in the Zither realm, he personally experienced the horror of the sad state. Until now, he had only slightly adapted to it and was not unaffected by it. Once it broke out, it would be absolutely terrifying. That was the desire of all living beings, not the desire of 1 or 100 people. If one fell into it, they would be consigned to eternal damnation. Phew! He exhaled heavily, stood up and looked at the cave. There was a trace of a bitter smile on his face. Why did I come back here? Could it be that I subconsciously want to go back to the place where I was born? The scene in front of him was impressively the cave in the Tiger Hill mountain range. Back then, he was born here. He remembered every stone very clearly. There was no reason for him to remember wrongly. Perhaps this could only be said to be a kind of subconscious instinct. Even if his mind was lost, he would still instinctively return here. He walked out of the cave and scanned his surroundings. The scenery in front of him, every blade of grass and every tree, told him that this was indeed Tiger Hill. Being in Tiger Hill, the scene of his family here naturally appeared in his mind. There was a trace of reminiscence on his face, but even more so was a trace of cold hatred. He muttered, "Don't worry, mother. This time, I'll first kill the female cultivator who captured you. It won't be long before I go to the 10,000 Beasts sect and bring you back. If anything happens to you, I will annihilate his entire family." After saying that, he didn't stay any longer. These things just needed to be kept in the bottom of his heart. He thought to himself, "I'm afraid that the southern wilderness will be in chaos this time. This time I kidnapped Chen-Shi. I'm afraid that my relationship with the other monster kings will be estranged. There was also Chen-Shi. Forget it. He had to face what he had to face in the end." With a thought, a gust of demonic wind rose from the ground and swept him up. He quickly rushed back in the direction of the southern barbaric land. The speed of the demonic wind was more than twice as fast as before he condensed his inner core. He was really like a flash of lightning. It was incomparably swift. However, he wasn't in the mood to look at the scenery along the way at all. Escaping wasn't the way to solve the problem. Since he had done something wrong, he should face it bravely. Even if he couldn't get forgiveness, it would make his heart feel better. After all, he was still doing his best to make up for it. As for whether he accepted it or not, it wasn't something he could control. He just had to do what he could. He quickly returned to the southern wilderness. He didn't have a long time to perform. As soon as he entered the southern wilderness, he immediately felt that the southern wilderness, which had always been quiet in the past, seemed to have suddenly awakened. There were birds and beasts running around everywhere. Obviously, they were searching for something. Wah! In the sky, an underworld crow with sharp eyes saw Di-Shir-Tian and immediately let out a high-pitched cry. Although the cry was unpleasant and hoarse, the range that it spread out was quite wide. Almost in the blink of an eye, the cries were continuous and undulating. "Di-Shir-Tian, you're finally back." In the sky, a snow-white figure rushed over quickly. It was the red-crowned crane king. As soon as she arrived in front of Di-Shir-Tian, she scolded angrily, "What did you do to Sister Shi?" Sister Shi just returned, and her face was cold. She immediately sealed the 100 Flowers Valley and didn't let anyone in. "If you dare to hurt Sister Shi, I, Ruodong, will definitely not let you go." The red-crowned crane king immediately scolded, looking unusually angry. It turned out that Chen-Shi had also returned to the 100 Flowers Valley not long ago. However, after returning, she immediately asked the other kings to leave with the excuse that she needed to stabilize her cultivation after the tribulation. She also said that she wanted to seal the 100 Flowers Valley and not see other monsters for the time being. The reason was very reasonable, but from the cold expression on Chen-Shi's face, the red-crowned crane king instinctively felt that things were definitely not as simple as she said. Something important must have happened. Otherwise, with Chen-Shi's temperament, she had always been very gentle, graceful, and elegant. It was impossible for her to have such an unapproachable expression. Di-Shir-Tian heard this and couldn't help but frown. Then, he raised his eyebrows and looked at the red-crowned crane king. Suddenly, a violent aura erupted from his body. However, it only appeared for a moment before disappearing. It was as if it had never appeared. However, the red-crowned crane king instantly felt as if an incomparably heavy mountain had suddenly appeared above its head. Its originally angry demeanor was immediately suppressed. "This is a matter between me and Chen-Shi. I will naturally deal with it personally. As for you, it's best if you don't interfere." There was a trace of indifference in his words. A trace of deterrence. "You?" The red-crowned crane king's eyes changed. Anger surged in its heart, but it could only spit out one word and couldn't continue. Sorry, I'm in a bad mood. If my words have offended you, please don't take it to heart. Don't worry, this is only a matter between me and Chenxi. I'll deal with it. Di Shitian raised his eyes and looked ahead. He saw a huge bald eagle with a bunch of golden feathers on its head rushing over excitedly. As it rushed over, it shouted loudly, "King, you're finally back. No need to say anything more. Let's go back to the Myriad Demon Valley first. We'll talk about the rest later." Di Shitian wasn't in the mood to waste time here. He was already annoyed enough in his heart. It was a good time to go back to the valley and deal with it. Then, he would figure out how to deal with it next. Alright, King, get on my back. I'll download it. You can go back. Without stopping for a moment, Di Shitian stood on the eagle's back and went back to the Myriad Demon Valley, leaving the red-crowned crane king in the same place. However, it wasn't good for it to chase after him. Big sister, what happened? You've never been like this before. Could it be that brother Di? Don't mention Di Shitian in front of me in the future. You're also not allowed to see him in the future. Just treat it as if we never knew him. She was sitting in the pavilion with a cold face. He stared blankly at the blooming lotus in the water. There was an indescribable complicated look in his eyes. Next to him was the vermilion bird. The vermilion bird's eyes were full of worry. However, she didn't know what had happened. She asked Chenxi, but Chenxi wouldn't tell her. After returning to the valley and sitting in the pavilion, her heart was in a mess. In her mind, when she thought of what had happened before, a murderous intent emerged. She had an impulse to kill Di Shitian with her own hands. But then, a trace of other thoughts appeared inexplicably. She couldn't kill him no matter what. When she thought of Di Shitian, there was an extremely complicated feeling in her heart. She definitely hated him, but inexplicably, there was a trace of a shadow in her heart. A trace of a strange emotion. Every time she wanted to make up her mind to kill him, he would run out, causing her to become upset and complicated. Seeing this, the vermilion bird was full of worry, but she didn't know how to comfort her. She could only accompany her, flying up and down anxiously. No one knew what she was thinking. Since returning and sitting in the pavilion, she stared blankly at the lotus outside the pavilion without blinking. It seemed that there was no focus, and the divine light was scattered. Obviously, her mind was not on the lotus. She sat there for a day and a night. Ding dong, ding ding dong dong. On the second day, a melodious sound of a zither suddenly came clearly from outside the valley. It made the valley, which had been silent all this time, seem to have suddenly awakened. Sister, there is the sound of a zither. I'll go outside and take a look. The vermilion bird had a playful personality. When she saw Chenxi's serious look, she was not in the mood to play. She was worried that something would happen, so she stayed here. Given her character, she had been staying here for a day and a night. When she heard the sound of a zither, she was suddenly energized. She wanted to go out and take a look. There's no need to go out. She shook his head softly. He looked out of the valley and saw the light inside, which was complicated. Why? The vermilion bird asked in confusion. Ding dong, ding dong. After the first few notes, the sound of the zither immediately flowed smoothly like flowing water. It sounded very crisp and pleasing to the ear when connected together. The sound of the zither was connected into a song. Listening to the sound of the zither, there seemed to be a lingering artistic conception. It was as if there was a man pouring out his love to the woman he loved. Fengxi returns to her hometown, roams the four seas to find her. When I didn't meet her, I didn't have a general. How can I comprehend today? When the sound of the zither was heard, it gradually became a song. Along with the sound of the zither, there was a lingering artistic conception in the song. It was as if it was summoning a lover. Ah, this is Brother D's voice. Brother D is playing the zither outside. Sister, listen. The vermilion bird could not help but exclaim when she heard the song. She immediately recognized that the person playing the zither was Chertion. Let him play. Let's see what tricks he can play. When Chen-shi heard it, his eyes flashed and he muttered, "If you want to know what will happen next, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading." Chapter 266. I heard that Brother D left the southern barbarian lands last time to learn the Guqin. Now that he has returned, this is the first time I've heard him play a song. Sister, listen, this song is so beautiful. It's like someone is murmuring to the woman he loves. And this song, it's so nice to hear. The phoenix and the phoenix return to their hometown, roaming the four seas to find the phoenix. The phoenix is the male, the phoenix is the female. Brother D is seeking a mate. The vermilion bird listened to the sound of the Guqin and couldn't help but immerse herself in it. She felt the meaning of the song. Her two wings were like two arms, folded together and gently flapped. A phoenix seeking a phoenix. Chen-shi's expression was still indifferent. How could the resentment in his heart be easily eliminated? He sneered, "I'd like to see how he's going to seek a phoenix. Does he think that a song can resolve his wrongdoings?" He softly shouted and listened to the song. It was not that he couldn't hear the sentimental mood in the song. But he didn't show any expression, just listened indifferently. Ding dong, the sound of the Guqin was melodious and gentle, like lovers whispering to each other by the ear, like a cool breeze blowing on the face. It was unusually sentimental. In the sound of the Guqin, there was a hint of affection and a deep sense of apology. This was Chertion placing his heart in the sound of the Guqin, expressing his apology with the sound of the Guqin. But there was also a scene of a phoenix seeking a phoenix, chirping and expressing their love. As the saying goes, meeting is fate. Lovesickness is gradually entangled, but meeting is difficult. The mountain is high and the road is long, but only 1,000 miles away can share the beauty of the moon. Because of dissatisfaction, the dream of a couple becomes empty. So we take shape and ask the swan goose to pass the message quickly. She opens the seal and holds the jade photo, looking at it carefully, but only to see that her lips are red, her eyebrows are black, her eyes are watery, and her feelings are deeper. How can infinite love be expressed? Looking to the southeast, the song of a phoenix seeking a phoenix. Along with the sound of the Guqin, the song started again, with a beautiful lady in the boudoir. Everyone in the room poisons my heart. How are we destined to cross necks like mandarin ducks? Hu and Cece soar together. Phoenix perches with me, and I'll be a concubine forever. No matter how nicely you put it, Chen-shi, will never forgive you. Unknowingly, a petal between Chen-shi's fingers had already been crushed, no longer recognizable. Chen-shi thought to herself ruthlessly. The incident this time was extremely harmful to her. Not only had her pure body been taken away, but more than half of the divine splendor that her main body had accumulated over countless years had entered Chertion's body. This kind of hatred could be washed away even with all the water in the 3 rivers. Following the sound of the Guqin, a pavilion suddenly appeared at the entrance of the valley. There were tables and stools in the pavilion, and Chertion, dressed in a black robe, was sitting in the pavilion. In front of him was a pitch-black Guqin. The Guqin was the 7 sins demonic Guqin. Because it had absorbed abundant power of desire, it had become pitch-black. However, because Chertion had also condensed his own Niden, he had officially been promoted from a demonic beast to a demon. Whether it was the 7 sins demonic Guqin or the tiger soul saber, they were now in the process of being promoted to a magic weapon. However, this process still needed a certain amount of time, and it could not be completed in a short time. Once the Guqin changed from black to a snow-white crystal like jade, it meant that the Guqin had been transformed from a celestial device to a magic weapon. If one were to take a closer look, one would be able to clearly discover that within the zither, streams of pure desire energy were continuously evolving and gathering together to form several strange talismans. It was imprinted on the guqin. Every time a talisman was formed, the blackness in the guqin would recede a lot. When all the power of desire was formed into talismans, the guqin would naturally be promoted to a magic weapon. When he returned to the myriad demon valley before, his mind could not calm down. There was always a kind of irritable aura rising in his heart, and his mind was restless. From time to time, the appearance of Chen Shi when she left flashed in his mind. From the beginning to the end, he had never felt so indebted to anyone. Chen Shi was the only one he had nothing to say. After thinking about it carefully, he realized that running away was not a solution. In the future, he could only do his best to make up for it. Seriously speaking, it would be hypocritical to say that he did not admire a woman like Chen Shi after seeing her. It was too much to say that it was love at first sight. Di Shurtian had his own views on love at first sight. The so-called love at first sight was just a trace of affection between each other, and then through mutual contact and understanding, it was sublimated. It transformed into love. No one would fall in love with another person at first sight. Love, no matter when, was like a delicate flower that needed to be carefully cultivated and cared for. Only in this way could it flourish. It could even blossom and bear fruit. With a trace of affection after the previous meeting, coupled with such a thing, he could no longer look at Chen Shi as an ordinary woman. It was not a forced thing to say that he wanted to pursue her. One was to seek her, and the other was to make up for it. Therefore, after thinking about it for a whole day, as soon as the sun rose, he took the guqin to the outside of the 100 Flowers Valley. He set up a pavilion outside the valley, sat in the pavilion, and played the song "The Phoenix Seeks the Phoenix." Friendship is harmonious, and who knows the person in the middle of the night? Both wings rise and fly high, and I feel no sorrow. His 10 fingers fluttered on the strings as if they were moving clouds and flowing water. The strings vibrated, and a beautiful and melodious sound of the zither rang out. When he was playing the zither, his desire to pursue Huang Xiaolong, and even the deep sense of apology in his heart, were all poured into the zither. He put his heart into the sound of the zither. He expressed his feelings through the sound of the guqin. This was an extremely profound realm in the art of music. In the secular world, he could be called a master of the guqin. At this time, if he could pour his demon essence into his 10 fingers and play with it, something unbelievable would happen. He could truly develop the realm of the guqin and create a phoenix in the sky. And Di Shurtian did the same. Pure demon essence flowed through his demon meridians into his 10 fingers, and poured into every note of the guqin every time he plucked the strings. Immediately, the love in the guqin became more obvious and lingering. Howl! As the guqin gradually reached its climax, the guqin sounds connected together, and the artistic conception of the song spewed out. In the sky, a magical scene appeared silently. In the void, there was a mountain forest formed by wudong trees. In the forest, there was a phoenix and a phoenix. The phoenix and the phoenix stood on 2 wudong trees. The phoenix spread its wings one by one, and 7-colored divine light flowed continuously. It looked unusually handsome. It raised its head and let out a clear and melodious phoenix cry. The phoenix cry was full of affection, and it seemed to want the phoenix to be its partner. That sound went straight into one's heart, and it was so moving that one couldn't help but want to accept the other's love. The Phoenix Seeking the Phoenix was a wonderful song in the world. It was the most beautiful song between lovers, and it was incomparably moving. Generally, lovers who loved each other deeply would feel the same when they heard this song, and their feelings for each other would also reach an indescribable level of sublimation. There is a beauty, and I won't forget when I see her. Not seeing her for a day, I miss her like crazy. The phoenix soars, seeking the phoenix from all over the world. But the beauty is not at the east wall. Replacing the words with the guqin, we talk about our heart. When will I see Su-shi, she comforts me. Willing words and virtue, we will go hand in hand. Not being able to fly, she makes me fall. Zhu, go out and ask him to leave. Just say that I don't want to see him, and ask him not to play the guqin here. Let my 100 flowers valley be quiet. Chun, she looked up at the scene in the void that was created by the guqin's artistic conception. He was silent for a long time before he spoke to the Zhu. Why? Zhu thinks that this song is very nice. Zhu has never heard such a nice song before. It's really beautiful. Let Big Brother D play for a while. The Zhu said in confusion. In any case, she felt that she had never heard such a nice song before, and she couldn't wait to hear another one. Zhu, are you not listening to me anymore? If I tell you to go, then go. Yes, sister. The Zhu said with some grievance. She flapped her wings and flew out of the valley. In the blink of an eye, she saw the pavilion outside the valley. When she saw Di Shirtian in the pavilion, she couldn't help but fly over happily. She said with a smile, Big Brother D, it's really you playing the guqin. It's really nice. Zhu loves it. But... She paused and said in a low voice, Sister asked you to leave. She doesn't want to see you. Big Brother D, Zhu doesn't understand what happened between you and Sister. When the vermilion bird saw Sakura, she didn't feel that he was a stranger at all. She giggled and asked again. This little gossip of hers had completely aroused her curiosity. No matter how she thought about it, she couldn't understand what was going on. Zhu, this matter is between me and your sister. You'd better not ask too much. I'll leave now, but I'll come again tomorrow. Sakura looked at the vermilion bird flying up and down with a happy and carefree look, which indeed made people envious. Towards her inquiry, he could only respond with silence. After that, he put away the 7 sins demonic guqin, turned around and left immediately. Hey, why are you leaving so soon? The Zhu saw and wanted to stop him, but Di Shirtian was already far away. She couldn't help but feel puzzled. She shook her head and said, I really don't understand. But Big Brother D said he'll come again tomorrow. That means I'll have another song to listen to. That's great. I'll tell Sister. The Zhu smiled secretly. She flapped her wings and quickly flew back to the valley. Sure enough, Di Shirtian did as he said. Since he was determined to do it, he had no intention of backing down. The next day, he went outside the valley again and played a song. When he saw no response after the song, he didn't feel discouraged and left. Although love was indispensable, one's goals and ideals were equally important. Going to the 100 Flowers Valley to play a song was only one morning. The rest of the time was spent on other things. But every morning, he would come outside the valley to play a song, regardless of rain or shine. After he finished playing, he would leave. He persevered. For 10 days, he didn't stop. To be continued. If you want to know what happened next, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 267. The music he played often changed, but the most played ones were A Male Phoenix Seeking a Female Phoenix and The Lovers of Liang. Their male phoenix seeking a female phoenix was easy to play. In this world, there were people who had made music and played it according to the score. However, The Lovers of Liang was a song that evolved from a story unique to his previous life. Fortunately, Di Shirtian still had an extraordinary talent for the art of guqin. He was familiar with the legend of the Lovers of Liang, so it was not too difficult to evolve the artistic conception in the story into the music. In his previous life, he had found a song on the internet and listened to it. It had some influence in his mind. This time, it took some time, but in the end, he managed to compose the complete song. When he played it, there was indeed a kind of poignant and romantic feeling. The lingering artistic conception of the couple turning into butterflies could be clearly expressed. Although he still did not get any response from her every morning, she did not ask Vermilion Bird to drive him away. He would leave on his own after playing a song. There are also tricks to pursuing a woman. Fortunately, I still know a trick or two. I hope it will be useful. However, for the time being, I should let she familiarize herself with my existence. At that time, when she is familiar with my existence and my music every morning, I will try to stop for a day or two and play hard to get. Maybe it will have some effect. Alas, forget it. It's all my fault. After the last note fell from the Sakra's hand, he sighed secretly and took the ancient zither. He turned around and returned to the Demon's Valley as usual. Riding the demon wind, he did not deliberately speed up. He just drifted naturally with the wind, letting the wind take him forward, but he was thinking about something else. It's been more than a year since I returned to the southern barbarian lands. There are only a few days left before the opening of the Heavenly Demon Mystery Land. I can't miss this opportunity. It's said that after the Mystery Land opens, you'll have to wait for thousands of years before it opens again. Sakra thought to himself, I don't have the time to wait for thousands of years. There are many things that are urgent. I remember that I made an appointment with Wu Wudi and the others to go to the bone-burying wilderness 10 years later. If it's really like what they said, that I can find a spiritual essence like the grass of immortality there, then it's still worth going there to explore. In the wine god's treasure mirror, there seemed to be a type of immortal revival wine that required the grass of immortality as its main ingredient. If such a spirit wine can be brewed, it will definitely be beneficial to the future. He had another wish, which was to brew all of the spirit wines recorded in the wine god's treasure mirror and store them in the wine god gourd. That way, he would be able to take a sip or two from time to time. That would be the wonderful life of an immortal. Furthermore, according to the records, the effects of the undying soul return wine could be said to be extremely miraculous. As long as one drank a mouthful of the undying soul return wine, even if one were to be killed in the next instant, one would still be immortal. No matter how serious the injury, it would heal in an instant. Moreover, even if one were to die, they could drink a mouthful. That person's soul would be revived, resurrected. It could be said to be a divine-grade spirit wine, and the various ingredients in it were relatively precious. No matter how capable one was, it would take a lot of effort to gather all of them. Many of the ingredients had long gone extinct in the world, and had not been seen for countless years. However, at the end of the day, the bone-burying plains would definitely yield a great harvest. No matter how he looked at it, it was worth a trip. Moreover, Wu Wudi seemed worth befriending. Moreover, there was the trip to Qingqiu Mountain that Bai Hu had mentioned. Although he didn't know why she wanted him to go to Qingqiu Mountain, he had no choice but to make the trip after hearing Bai Hu's solemn expression. When I return from the Sky Fae secret realm, I must find some time to go into seclusion for a few years and think of a way to create my own cultivation method. Otherwise, it will be difficult to cultivate in the future. Moreover, I've chosen such a remote path, and other cultivation methods are only of reference value to me. I hope I can obtain some treasures left behind by the Sky Fae in the Sky Fae secret realm to help me create my own cultivation method. Sky Fae, what kind of powerful existence was that? I don't know if I will be able to reach that level one day. However, even if I can, it won't be something that can be achieved in a few thousand years or tens of thousands of years. Deep down, he sorted out his thoughts for the future and planned carefully. As he did so, he clearly felt that what he lacked the most wasn't other cultivation methods or treasures, but time. No one could become an expert in a short period of time. They relied on the accumulation of time to comprehend the truths of the world. If the heavens could give him thousands or tens of thousands of years, Chertion was confident that he could become an expert who looked down on the world. He could explore even more profound realms. Forget it. The secret realm is about to open, and I have to prepare well. In this period of time, I should consolidate my newly broken realm with my cultivation base of condensing an inner core. Moreover, my inner core has become very different after dual cultivation with Chen Shi, and seems to be much stronger than when I first condensed my inner core. If that's the case, then with my strength, I'll be able to match even a nascent soul cultivator. With Tiger Soul using the demonic god youth and the seven sins fiend zither playing, nascent soul cultivators may not be my mat. I should still have a considerable advantage in this trip to the secret realm. He pondered as he hurried forward, and soon returned to the Thousand Demon Valley. Under the lead of Chihua and the others, there was a large number of spirit beasts that had been born with spirituality in the valley. They were all using the purple chi that rose from the east in the morning to absorb the spiritual chi of heaven and earth and cultivate. There were thousands of spirit beasts cultivating together, and the scene was indeed a little spectacular. However, they were all gathered in an open space. The positions where they stood were a little messy. The spiritual chi of heaven and earth in the valley was slowly surging into their bodies. When I return from the secret realm, I should build a gathering place and completely integrate the demon race in the valley. Build a foundation. The scene in front of him made Chertion secretly plan in his heart. He had a rough plan in his heart. He just had to wait for how to implement it. He didn't stay for long and returned to the cave abode. Little White was now in seclusion. She also had a kind of obsession with strength, and her desire for power was no less than Chertion's. Therefore, she had been seizing the time to cultivate. He sat down on the stone bed and raised his eyebrows slightly. He reached out and patted the storage bag lightly. Suddenly, a light flashed, and a treasure box that shone with a green light appeared in his hand. There were strange talismans on the treasure box, forming lines that covered the top and bottom of the box, and on the front of the treasure box. However, there was an unusually messy picture. There were tens of thousands of pieces, and there was almost no connection between these pieces. They were unusually messy like small tadpoles. There were indeed many pieces, but this jigsaw puzzle was made with the technique of the universe inside. There were many pieces, but each piece could be clearly imprinted in the eyes. Inside, there was only one piece that was blank. As long as the blank piece was removed, the pieces could be moved and the jigsaw puzzle could be completed. This treasure box was the Imperial Heavenly Treasure Box. Ever since he solved the first jigsaw puzzle, he obtained the ancient scroll and learned the divine song. It was extremely precious, but in the next few years, the treasure box was always with Bai Hu and Su Tianxiang, and he didn't have the opportunity to come into contact with it. It was only until he returned that the treasure box fell into his hands again. But today was the first time he took it out to look at it carefully. Imperial Heavenly Treasure Box, I really don't know how you came to be here. How many jigsaw puzzles are there? The first one had thousands of pieces, and now the second one has tens of thousands of pieces. I don't know how much effort and time it would take to complete this jigsaw puzzle, if there were any left. To solve it, it would take at least 10 or 100 years. The puzzle on the Imperial Heavenly Treasure Box was faintly surrounded by 5-colored divine light. In fact, Sakura also knew in his heart that just by solving the first puzzle, he was able to obtain such a precious divine object. If he could solve it again, the object that he obtained would definitely be more precious than the ancient scroll and even more incredible. But the key was that he had to be able to solve the jigsaw puzzle. While looking at it carefully, he didn't forget to use his strong memory to imprint the jigsaw puzzle in his mind bit by bit. He had to first memorize the entire jigsaw puzzle in his mind, and then use his mental calculation to find the pieces that were related to each other and deduce them in his mind. But there were too many pieces, and just imprinting them all in his mind took no less than 2 hours. When he had completely memorized them, he put the treasure box away again. When he had time, he would slowly deduce it. If he persevered, he would be able to deduce it completely sooner or later. He estimated that it would take at least a few years. No longer thinking about it, he sat cross-legged on the bed and secretly immersed his mind into his body. He ran the demonic spirit, which quickly ran in the demonic vein. When he absorbed the spiritual chi of heaven and earth, the rich power of desire between heaven and earth also entered his body. Moreover, the speed of absorption was several times faster than that of the spiritual chi of heaven and earth. The power of desire was divided into 3 types, which corresponded to the demonic vein in his body. After absorbing it, he would first refine it in the demon-refining tripod, and then enter the 3rd-class Black Lotus. The Black Lotus was the inner elixir. The Black Lotus absorbed the spiritual chi of heaven and earth and the power of desire. The spiritual chi was transformed into demonic spirit and stored in the black bead. The power of desire from the adventure was divided into 3 parts and entered into each of the 3 parts. It could be said that it was in good order, but it still didn't merge. It was a kind of incomplete. Time began to pass quietly. It was getting closer and closer to the opening of the heavenly demon mystery realm. The entire southern wilderness, no, not only the southern wilderness but also other places, and even the entire world of immortal cultivators, faintly felt a different atmosphere gathering. To be continued. If you want to know what will happen next, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author, support the original reading. Chapter 268. In the blink of an eye, a month passed quietly. Tian still went to the 100 Flowers Valley to play a song every day, rain or shine. It had gradually become a habit. This kind of persistence in playing the guqin in the early morning imperceptibly deepened his attainments in the art of the guqin. Moreover, the living creatures nearby seemed to be able to feel the artistic conception of the guqin. Every day, they would come to the pavilion to listen to the guqin. They already had a rare spirituality. Elder sister, Brother D left again after playing the guqin. This time, he played The Lovers of Liang again. It sounded so sad and beautiful. Also, the story about the Lovers of Liang that Brother D told me last time was really too seductive. This is already the 41st day. Zhu can see through Brother D's thoughts. Can't you tell, elder sister? In the 100 Flowers Valley, she sat in the pavilion, looking at the lotus flowers in the water that were not stained by the mud while listening to the music that was like the sound of nature. No hatred could be seen on her face. She had already returned to her previous demeanor, dignified, graceful, elegant, and all kinds of temperaments gathered on her body. It seemed that it was not a long time, but the coldness in her heart was already hidden under her face. Coldness in her heart, and hatred in her heart. But at least on the surface, she had returned to normal. If he wants to play, let him play. That's his own business. What does it have to do with elder sister? With the wrong things he has done, even if he plays for a year, 10 years, or 100 years, I won't forgive him. Her expression was calm. When she talked about Tian again, her expression was calm, as if she was talking about a stranger. But only she knew what was in her heart. Elder sister, actually, Zhu thinks that Brother D is very good. Zhu Niao blinked and revealed a sly look. She thought to herself, Brother D promised me 100 bottles of monkey wine and asked me to persuade elder sister often. Well, I can't take the benefits and not do anything. Anyway, if Brother D becomes my brother-in-law, that would be the best thing. In the future, I will have another powerful backer. Look, Big Brother D is a unique prodigy in cultivation. When he came to the southern barbarian lands, he was just a demon, but it didn't take long for him to break through and become a demon. Look, recently, he even transcended the tribulation and transformed into a demon. It has only been a few years. In the history of our demon clan, we have never seen such a genius. In our southern barbarian lands, I'm afraid other than my sister, Big Brother D is the strongest. Moreover, Big Brother D knew how to play the guqin. He was so cultured. Zhu really wants such a good brother-in-law. Zhu Niao spared no effort in speaking. Oh you! Chen, she extended her slender finger and gently tapped the vermilion bird's head. She shook her head helplessly and said, Zhu there are some things that you don't understand. Don't blindly meddle in this matter. If you have nothing to do, go out of the valley and make a trip to your sister Medusa and the Myriad Demon Valley. Ask Medusa to go to the valley with him. Just tell them it's about the heavenly demon mystic realm. Chen, she suddenly changed the topic to the heavenly demon mystic realm. Calculating the time, there was not much time left before the opening day. Heavenly demon mystic realm? Sister, are we only going to inform Big Brother D and Sister Medusa? Don't we need to inform the black guy and that stinky crow? Zhu Niao tilted her head and asked in a childish voice. No need. Going to the heavenly demon mystic realm is extremely dangerous. If a demon goes with only a cultivation base, it will be extremely dangerous and there is the danger of dying at any time. Even if they go, they might not be of any help. It's better to cultivate quietly in the southern barbarian lands and wait patiently for the tribulation. This is the most important thing. Letting Medusa and the rest go can also be considered an opportunity. The heavenly demon mystic realm is not something that can be gained by entering a large number of people. It depends on fate. If one is not fated, no matter how many people enter, it will be in vain. Chen, she shook his head slightly and explained. Oh, I see. Zhu Niao blinked and called out, Zhu understands. I'll go inform them now. After saying that, she no longer hesitated. She flapped her wings and happily flew out of the valley. These days, she was bored out of her wits. Now that she had the opportunity to go out and soar freely, how could she not be happy? After leaving the valley, she quickly flew north. When Zhu Niao arrived at the Myriad Demon Valley, a little demon in the valley went in to report and brought her into the cave abode. Di Shirtian also came out from his meditation. When he saw Zhu Niao, he could not help but ask with a faint smile, Zhu why are you free to come to Big Brother D's place today? Could it be that something happened? As he spoke, he came to the table, took out the wine god's gourd, and poured 2 cups of spirit wine. Zhu did not say anything else. As soon as she smelled the wine, she immediately landed on the table, stuck her head in, and gulped it down. Only then did she say comfortably, It's really comfortable. Big Brother D's spirit wine is still the best. I really want to live here every day. That way, I can drink to my heart's content. After saying that, she smiled and winked at Di Shirtian, saying, Come here. My sister asked me to invite you over. She has something to say. Whoa! When Di Shirtian heard that, he suddenly stood up from the stool. His expression became serious, and he said, Your sister asked me to go over. There was some disbelief in his words. He thought to himself, could it be that Chen she is willing to forgive me? Although he thought about it, he knew that the possibility was not high. However, Chen Shi's invitation was exactly what he wanted. Naturally, he would not decline at all. He quickly nodded and said seriously, Since your sister asked, let's go over now. After saying that, with a thought, a demonic wind rose from the ground. It swept up the vermilion bird and rushed straight to the 100-Flower Valley. After walking dozens of times in a row, the path was incomparably familiar. He could walk it even with his eyes closed. Come, Big Brother D, I'll take you to the Lotus Pavilion. My sister is waiting for us there. Not long after, they arrived at the 100-Flower Valley. The vermilion bird cheerfully led the way in front and entered the valley first. Huff! However, Sakura stood in front of the valley and let out a heavy sigh. Looking at the valley, his gaze was unusually complicated as he muttered to himself, Hundred Flowers Valley, ah, Hundred Flowers Valley, when I couldn't enter, I wanted to enter, but I didn't expect that when I can enter now, I would actually have the thought of not daring to step in as I stand here." He sighed deeply and shook his head with a wry smile. "It seems that no matter what, I really can't owe a debt. It's easy to owe a debt, but hard to pay it back." With a complicated feeling in his heart, he stepped into the valley and looked at the scenery inside. The flowers and plants that had been damaged by the heavenly tribulation and the battle were now in full bloom in every corner. It could be said to be colorful and beautiful. Smelling the pleasant fragrance of the flowers, he felt that the inside and outside of the valley were two completely different worlds. Following the vermilion bird, they arrived at the lotus pavilion built on the water again. Tion stared into the pavilion and his eyes suddenly widened in surprise. He thought to himself, "Why is Medusa here too? I knew it. How could she forgive me so easily and meet me alone?" While Xiao Chen felt surprised, he also felt relieved. In the pavilion, Shi, who was dressed in plain white palace attire, sat opposite Medusa, who was dressed in colorful clothes. They were currently conversing softly. "Sister Shi, did anything bad happen when Tion took you away last time? I heard from Zhu that recently he's been coming here every day to play the zither," Medusa said softly. "I'm fine." Shi shook his head. "Don't worry, I'm fine. Alright, he's here too." With that, he raised his head and glanced at Tion. There was neither hatred nor love in his eyes. It was as if he was looking at a stranger. His eyes were as calm as water. He was unperturbed. Alas! Seeing this, Tion could not help but reveal a trace of bitterness. His heart was cold. To be honest, he would rather see hatred in Shi's eyes than look at him as if he was looking at a stranger. If he hated him, at least he still had him in his heart. In that way many things could be changed. But now, he did not know what to do. "Come in," she said indifferently. Tion took a deep breath and forced himself to calm down. He walked into the pavilion, looked around, and sat down on an empty stool. She glanced around. After seeing that everyone was present, he said, "I called you here this time because I have something to tell you. I guess you all know that the Heavenly Demon Mysteryland is only a month away from opening." With that, he paused, picked up the teacup in front of him, moistened his mouth, and continued, "Although the southern wilderness is small, this mystery land was left behind by the ancestors of the Demon Clan. On the day it opens, the Demon Clan has to try their luck. Maybe we can get the blessings of our ancestors. However, it's also very dangerous. Only the two of you have the ability. I called you here to see if you're willing to go." His voice was elegant. As he spoke, he looked at Medusa. As for Tion, he did not look at him again since he sat down. It was as if he was really a stranger who did not exist. Medusa was also a woman. She was meticulous. She saw all of this, but after all, she had no reason to ask, so she could only bury her doubts in the bottom of her heart. She thought to herself, could it be that Sister She really has something to do with Tion? The Mystery Land is an opportunity left behind by the ancestors of the Demon Clan. We have to go. Count me in. When Tion heard this, he had been looking forward to the Heavenly Demon Mystery Land for a long time. Recently, he had been secretly thinking about it. Now that he heard She mention it, he agreed without hesitation. However, his tone changed and he asked, "I only know that one of the entrances to the Mystery Land is on North Night Island, but it has been occupied by immortal cultivators. I wonder where the other entrance is?" He looked at Shi's indifferent face. Last time, he knew from her that there were two entrances to the Mystery Land. One was on North Night Island, and the other was controlled by the Demon Clan. However, he did not know where it was or the route to it. The entrance to the Demon Clan is at Smoky Wave Lake. To be continued. If you want to know what happens next, please go to www. Chidian. Com, there are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 269. In fact, Shirtian had been in a dilemma. Human cultivators definitely could not enter North Night Island. After all, this was not like the time when he went to the secular world to learn the Guqin. The cultivators he met were not cultivators with high cultivation. With his ability to conceal his aura, he would not be exposed unless something unexpected happened. However, it was different this time. The heavenly demon mystery realm was very important. The treasures inside would arouse the desire of even the most powerful cultivators. They would go to the mystery realm and hope that they would be the one with the great opportunity. He guessed that the cultivators going to the mystery realm this time would be at the nascent soul stage. Even cultivators with a higher cultivation level than that would definitely go. Perhaps there would even be old monsters in the tribulation passing stage. It would be extremely difficult for such an expert to restrain his aura and hide his identity. If his identity was exposed, he would die on North Night Island no matter how powerful he was. The danger was too great, so much so that it was unbearable. There was another thing that he heard from Chen Shi. However, meeting Chen Shi was also a difficult thing to do. Therefore, before this, he had been inwardly hesitating, his heart wavering, thinking about what to do. Now that there was an opportunity, how could he let it go? He immediately asked without any hesitation. The mystery realm was an opportunity, but it would not wait for you. You had to fight for it and seize it yourself. Shirtian was very clear about this. Once there was an opportunity, he would not let it go. Smoky Wave Lake? What is that place? I've never heard of it. When Shirtian heard about the second entrance, he could not help but frown. He had a rough understanding of the purple gold mainland after being outside for more than a year. He knew some of the famous places. However, he had no impression of this Smoky Wave Lake at all. Sister Shi, could it be the Smoky Wave Lake where the legendary dragon clan, the leader of the scaly dragons, appeared? Medusa was different. After all, she had lived for too long and had some understanding of it. However, there was a weird expression on his face. Yes, it's that Smoky Wave Lake. Chen Shi nodded and said softly, the Misty Wave Lake extends for tens of thousands of miles. Although it is called a lake, it is comparable to the east, west, north, and south seas. There were many aquatic species in the lake, and it was rich in resources. Moreover, it was said that the dragon clan lived in the lake, and that the dragon clan of the four seas had moved in. In the middle of the lake, there was a misty island. The island was huge, and there was an entrance to the secret realm on it. Once the secret realm was opened, it would appear. Every time this happens, the demon clans scattered across the continent will rush there. At that time, he would be able to exchange for some items he needed on the island. No matter what, it's worth a trip. Speaking of this Misty Wave Lake, it could be said to be a beautiful place with endless scenery. Not only did it occupy a vast area of water, but it also had an independent spring in the middle of the lake. The water from the mouth of the spring was exceptionally sweet. As long as the mouth of the spring existed, the water in the lake would never dry up. There were all kinds of aquatic products in the water. It was said that it was connected to the four seas and was incomparably rich. There were dragons living in the lake. They ruled over countless aquatic species in the water. They were extremely powerful, but they had always kept a low profile. There were very few people who knew that there were dragons in the Misty Wave Lake. Even if they knew, most of them would not wantonly spread the news. In fact, the strength of the Misty Wave Lake itself was abnormally huge. Even cultivators did not dare to provoke it easily. One had to know that dragons were the head of all beasts. They had tiger whiskers and hyena tails, bodies as long as snakes, scales like fish, horns like deer, and claws like eagles. They could walk and fly, pour water, overturn rivers and seas, swallow wind and spit out fog, and cause clouds and rain. Moreover, dragons had 9 similarities, and their bodies were divine beasts with the strengths of all kinds of animals. They had many names. Those with scales were called flood dragons, those with wings were called ing dragons, those with horns were called hui dragons, and those without horns were called xiu dragons. The small ones were called flood dragons, and the big ones were called dragons. Legends said that they could appear and hide, and could be thin or huge, and could be short or long. They could ascend to the sky at the spring equinox, and dive into the abyss at the autumn equinox. They could summon the wind and rain, and were almost omnipotent. In the world, dragons were the head of the scaled species, and phoenixes were the head of the flying species. Most of them lived in the 4 seas. According to the records, in ancient times, dragons were often seen. Moreover, the dragon clan was unusually prosperous at that time. They had many descendants, and could be said to be the hero of the 4 seas. They were a race with great strength at the top. But for some reason, after the fusion of heaven and earth in ancient times, dragons were rarely seen. They were unusually rare and rarely appeared in the world. Until now, in the secular world, they had almost become a legend. However, there was absolutely no need to doubt their existence. In fact, if one really wanted to consider the dragons as part of the demon race, there was nothing wrong with it. There are dragons in the Misty Wave Lake? Tion could not help but exclaim in surprise. He was no stranger to dragons. In his previous life, the divine dragon was the totem of Huaxia. It was worshipped by the people of Huaxia for countless years, and even claimed to be the descendants of dragons. In various records, the divine dragon had long become a myth. It was omnipotent. Chen Shi glanced at Tion and did not answer. He just said, "Many powerhouses of our demon race will definitely rush to the Misty Wave Lake this time. Many of the 8 famous demon kings in the past might go. As for us southern barbarians, if you want to go, you go. The underworld Crow King and the others won't have any chance. There's also the matter of preparing for the tribulation. It's up to you to decide whether to go or not. Here, there are 2 jade slips that are maps to the Misty Wave Lake." Pada! Chen Shi waved his hand and placed 2 crystal-clear jade slips on the table. He did not force them to go or not. It was up to Tion and the others to decide whether to go or not. Most of the demon race will go. How can I miss it? It's a good opportunity to make some friends from the demon race. I'm definitely going to the Misty Wave Lake. Tion did not hesitate to grab a jade slip in front of him. He moved his demon consciousness and probed into the jade slip. As soon as his demon consciousness entered, there was a huge amount of information in the jade slip into his mind. After careful observation, he found that it was indeed a map. The map covered a large area, but many places were not marked in detail. It only recorded the road from southern barbarians to the Misty Wave Lake. According to the record, it would take at least 10 days to reach the destination from here without stopping for a moment. There's no time to lose. Medusa, why don't we prepare ourselves and go together in 3 days? We can take care of each other. Tion saw Medusa also pick up the jade slip and knew that she also decided to go, so he nodded and suggested, "Okay, I'll go to your demon's valley in 3 days and wait for you." Medusa nodded. Although they had condensed their Niden and transformed into demons, no one could be sure that there would not be any accidents along the way. If they went together and joined hands, they could take care of each other if something happened on the way. After all, they were all from the southern barbarian demon race. This arrangement was the best. Tion heard it and also had a plan. He turned to look at Chen Shi and saw that Chen Shi still looked like he was facing a stranger. He smiled bitterly. But he still reached out and patted the storage bag gently. With a flash of light, a small jade box appeared in his hand. He put it on the table and pushed it to Chen Shi. He said softly, "This is a small thing I made when I was free. I hope you can accept it." After that, he immediately stood up and walked out of the valley without hesitation. He did not wait for Chen Shi to accept or refuse. He knew very well that the possibility of rejection was higher. He just did not want to give Chen Shi any chance to refuse. As soon as he finished speaking, he left immediately. Moreover, he walked very quickly and left the 100 Flowers Valley in the blink of an eye. He rode the demon wind and rushed to the demon's valley. This time, he had to go back to the valley and explain in detail. It would be a big deal if he went out again this time. The demon's valley was his foundation, so he could not be careless. It was better to explain all kinds of things clearly. Now, there were already many spirit beasts in the valley. After careful arrangements, Chi Hua and the others could carry out their plan to build the demon's valley. Hee, Brother D walks so fast like a rabbit. Zhu Niao giggled and watched Di Shirtian leave. Then, her eyes fell on the jade box in front of her. She could not help but urge curiously, "This is a gift from Brother D. Sister, quickly open it and see what treasure is inside." The jade box was not big, only much bigger than a palm. It was rectangular and made of a very good piece of jade. Therefore, there was a sparkling jade light flowing on the surface of the jade box. It appeared to be unusually warm and gentle, and was very pleasant. "Throw it away. I don't want his things." Chen Shi glanced at the jade box indifferently. She did not seem to care at all, but there was a ripple in her eyes. She did not even seem to notice this ripple. "Sister Shi, it's good to open it and take a look. Little sister is also curious about what kind of things can be taken out from Di Shirtian's hands." Medusa dissuaded. Her eyes fell on the jade box. "If you want to see it, you can open it yourselves." Chen Shi's tone was not as firm as expected. "Hee, then I'll open it." The vermilion bird giggled and jumped forward. With a flap of its wings, it opened the jade box. As soon as it opened the box, a gentle light burst out from the box. The light radiated in all directions, but it was not dazzling. It was very gentle. She looked inside. "Wow! Sister, look, it's really beautiful." Zhu Niao shouted excitedly. "What a beautiful phoenix hairpin." Medusa's eyes flashed with a strange light. She looked at the box without blinking and sighed. Di Shirtian is a thoughtful person. This phoenix hairpin is made of 1,000-year-old warm jade. The method used to make it is the method of making a natal weapon. There is also a strange array inside. I can't tell what the talisman on it represents, but there is no doubt that it is a treasure. As long as you drip a drop of blood, it will recognize you as its master and become a natal weapon. To be continued. If you want to know what will happen next, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 270. It was a phoenix hairpin with a snow-white phoenix coiled around it. Every feather of the phoenix could be seen clearly, and it was so lifelike that it looked like a living phoenix. It was completely snow-white, crystalline, and translucent, and this revealed a noble and elegant aura. If one looked carefully, one would notice that no matter if it was the phoenix or the feathers on the phoenix, all of them were actually formed from numerous tiny talismans gathered together. It was magical and extraordinary. Only the refining method of the immortal cultivation world could present such an incredible scene. Even if the carving skills of the mortal world were superb, it would be difficult to create such a lifelike phoenix hairpin without a trace of craftsmanship. If it was taken to the mortal world, it would probably become a priceless rare treasure in an instant. This was a magic weapon. As long as one dripped one's blood essence on it, it would immediately recognize its owner. There was even a chance that it could be upgraded to the level of a natal magic weapon. Di Shirtian had spent a lot of effort to make this phoenix hairpin. He had taken out a piece of 1,000-year-old warm jade that he had obtained previously without hesitation. Moreover, he had specially spent time learning a lot of formations. That was why he was able to refine such a semi-finished natal magic weapon. Yes, sister, this hairpin is so beautiful. If you wear it on your head, it will definitely make you more beautiful. When the vermilion bird saw it, she was also happy and full of love. In this world, women were innately fond of beautiful things. For the sake of their beautiful faces, which one of them would not desperately cultivate various secret techniques to retain their beauty? For the sake of a face-retaining pill, no matter how high one's cultivation was, they would be moved. This phoenix hairpin had been made by de Chertion to be exceptionally beautiful. After seeing it, one could not help but fall in love with it. If sister doesn't want it, then Zhu won't be polite. The vermilion bird blinked and thought to herself, brother D, it's time for me, Zhu to show off my skills again. In the future, I won't stop until I extort dozens of gourds of spirit wine from you. While he was thinking, he said, in any case, it won't be long before Zhu transforms. When the time comes, we can bring her along. There was a hint of playfulness in his words. When Chen-shi heard this, her heart suddenly tightened. To be honest, she didn't mind giving it to others before she saw it. But after seeing it, she liked it at first glance. She thought to herself, this is from de Chertion. There's nothing wrong with accepting it. But if he wants me to forgive him, a phoenix hairpin is just a dream. Thoughts spun rapidly in her mind, but her face remained calm and elegant as usual. She said, Big sister said no. Zhu if you like it, I'll give it to you later. Medusa could not help but chuckle when she heard that. She changed the topic and said, Big sister the opening of the heavenly demon's secret dimension this time is a fortuitous encounter that only comes once every few thousand years. Don't you plan on coming with us? Among the southern barbarians, Chen-shi's cultivation was the highest. He could be called the demon king of his generation. If he could go, he could be called a powerhouse among the demon race. Perhaps the possibility of obtaining a fortuitous encounter in the secret dimension was higher. It was reasonable for Chen-shi to go. But in the current situation, it seemed that she did not intend to go. Sure enough, Chen-shi shook his head and said, No, it's already a great opportunity for me to live in the 100 Flowers Valley. This time, I just passed the 19th demon tribulation. I just need some time to cultivate in seclusion and stabilize my current realm. Moreover, there can't be no powerhouse in the southern barbarians. If you leave, and I leave too, the southern barbarians may not be taken advantage of by foreign enemies. So, I won't go this time. What she said might be one of the reasons, but whether there were other reasons, it was difficult for others to know except for herself. Medusa smiled and did not probe further. In the blink of an eye, 3 days passed quietly. On a mountain outside the southern barbarians, de Chertion was standing side by side with Medusa, looking into the distance. After a moment of silence, de Chertion said, Medusa, according to the map given by Chen-shi, if we ride the demon wind ourselves, it will take at least 10 days to half a month to rush there, and it will be too exhausting. I happen to have a flying magic treasure here. If you don't mind, let's go up together and reach the Misty Wave Island a few days earlier. Let's attend the gathering on the island. As he said, he turned his hand. With a flash of light, a snow-white spirit boat like a floating cloud appeared in his hand. It was only the size of a palm, but it had everything inside, just like a big boat in the secular world. There were cabins and all kinds of accompanying items. It could be said that there was nothing missing. He gently threw the spirit boat in front of him. Swish! With a flash of spiritual light, the palm-sized spirit boat immediately expanded at a speed visible to the naked eye. In the blink of an eye, it had become abnormally huge, like a luxurious treasure boat. Around the boat, there were snow-white floating clouds constantly gathering and dispersing. The boat was hidden in the floating clouds. Even if it appeared in the secular world, it would not attract the attention of ordinary people. They would just think that it was a huge cloud. On the boat, there were clouds condensed from clouds that were constantly emitting spiritual light. It was incomparably magical and was a good treasure. This is the flying magic treasure of the core formation cultivator who sneaked up on me back then. When Medusa saw this spirit boat, her eyes flashed, and a trace of surprise appeared on her calm face. She remembered very clearly that she had seen such a spirit boat back then. That's right. When that cultivator was killed, his life source magic treasure was damaged and turned into spiritual essence, which was then swallowed by my 7 sins demonic zither. However, this spirit boat is still very well preserved. I didn't think of it before. This time, we're going to a place as far away as Smoky Wave Lake, so I found it and refined it. This boat is called the Floating Cloud Boat. With its speed, we should be able to reach Smoky Wave Lake in 3 or 4 days. Tion gave a brief introduction. All flying magic treasures had a great advantage in speed, and this floating cloud boat was no exception. It was several times faster than flying with the Imperial Demon Wind. Moreover, the consumption of energy to fly the spirit boat was almost negligible. Swish! Without saying much, the two boarded the floating cloud boat together. Once they landed on the boat, they could clearly feel that this spirit boat had become bigger. Its range was still quite large. On the deck of the boat, there was a jade table where they could sit while slowly drinking tea and enjoying the scenery along the way. It could be said that they could kill several birds with one stone. While driving the spirit boat to Smoky Wave Lake, while sitting around the jade table on the deck, Tion wasn't stingy. He took out the wine god's gourd and a set of wine cups, and poured a cup for himself and Medusa. On the boat, they drank while looking at the scenery along the way, and talked about some cultivation problems. On the way, they didn't seem to be bored. With the speed of the spirit boat, it was naturally extraordinary. Tens of thousands of rivers and mountains were constantly left behind. Sitting on the boat and looking at the mountains and rivers of the continent, it was really a magnificent scenery. The towering steep mountain peaks were almost innumerable. It was impossible to estimate how big the entire Zijin continent was. One simply couldn't see the end of it at a glance. On the third day, the floating cloud boat rushed to Smoky Wave Lake as usual. Suddenly, a surprised voice came from Tion's mouth. The spirit boat also suddenly stopped in midair. This stop seemed to be condensed in midair, as if a huge white cloud had condensed in midair. Why did we stop? Medusa asked in surprise. The Smoky Wave Lake should still be some distance away. He secretly compared it with the map. In front of him, there were only mountains and rivers, and there was no lake. Obviously, they hadn't reached the Smoky Wave Lake yet. However, Tion looked down in surprise. Following his gaze, he saw a group of demon clan hurrying forward on a demon wind. Looking at their direction, they were also going to Smoky Wave Lake. Logically speaking, there was naturally nothing to be surprised about since the demon clan was hurrying on their way. However, the appearance of this group of demon clan below greatly surprised Tion. Look, these demon clan obviously don't have the cultivation of shapeshifting, but they all have the appearance of shapeshifting. It's fine if they can shapeshift, but how can their shapeshifting be so incomplete that their original appearance is exposed on their heads? Strange, it's really strange. I've never seen them like this in the southern barbarian lands. Tion pointed at the group of demon clan in confusion. Medusa fixed her eyes on them. Indeed, there were no less than 100 demon clan members gathered together, and they all had the body of a human. It looked no different from shape-shifting. However, if one looked carefully, one could find that the shape-shifting of these demon clan members was not complete like that of Tion and her. There were deer heads, wolf heads, and so on their head. They were in all kinds of strange shapes, and their faces were their original appearances. Moreover, there were many tails behind them, and one of their 2 hands was like a claw. Their faces were ferocious and looked really strange. Everyone could tell that they were demon clan members. Since Tion embarked on the path of demon cultivation, he had been practicing steadily step by step. from spirit beast to demonic beast, until he became a real shape-shifting demon clan member. Every step he took was firm. However, he never knew how a normal demon clan member could shapeshift into this appearance. Oh, so you're talking about them. These are all demon clan members who have been enlightened by the demon awakening technique. It's said that very few demon clan members know this kind of demon clan secret technique. I didn't expect to see it here. This demon awakening technique is really amazing. It's worthy of being one of the great secret techniques of our demon clan. Medusa's eyes showed a hint of understanding, and a faint light shone in them. Demon awakening technique? What kind of secret technique is that? How come I've never heard of it? Tion couldn't help but ask curiously. He searched through all the memories in his mind. Whether it was the bloodline inheritance or the ancient records of the demon clan in the 100-Flower Valley, there was not the slightest impression of this demon awakening technique. However, from Medusa's expression, he could see that this was definitely an incredible secret technique. He thought to himself, could it be that this demon awakening technique is related to this group of demon clan members in front of me? To be continued. If you want to know what happens next, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author, support the original reading. Chapter 271. It's normal that you haven't heard of it. Medusa glanced at Tion indifferently. She opened her cherry lips and said, It's only been 3 or 4 years since you came to the southern barbarian lands. You don't know a lot of things about the demon clan. Since we're here today, I'll tell you. Let's talk on the way. In the past few days, they talked with each other on the boat. They talked about their own cultivation and some interesting things they encountered. The unfamiliarity between them had long been eliminated. In addition, they were all members of the southern barbarian lands, so it was easy for them to make friends. Until now, they regarded each other as friends. Sure, Tion, I'm all ears. Sakura was naturally overjoyed. He waved his hand and let the floating cloud ship continue to move forward. He was quite interested in things that he didn't know about. Not to mention, this demonic technique seemed to have a huge connection with the demon race. He immediately guessed in his heart that if he could obtain this secret technique, it might bring him great benefits. It would definitely be helpful for developing his force. Sure enough, he heard Medusa say in detail, in fact, the demon awakening technique is a magical secret technique left by our demon clan ancestors in the ancient times. It is said that in the ancient times, almost all the clansmen who had some achievements in this secret technique knew about it. It is the most basic secret technique. It is also the most important secret technique, because, while hurrying on the way, he listened. After hearing this, Tian's heart was almost in an uproar. An extremely shocked expression emerged in his chest. It turned out that this demonic technique was really an important secret technique of the demon clan. It had an extraordinary effect on the development of the demon clan. In this world, take the ancient times as an example. At that time, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth was abnormally abundant. Even a place with barren spiritual energy could be compared to many of the cultivation sects of the present. They could absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth by just taking a breath. It could be seen how abundant the spiritual energy was. Therefore, at that time, a large number of birds and beasts, all kinds of strange beasts, and natural spiritual beasts all transformed and stepped into the demon clan. At that time, the demon clan could be said to be blessed by heaven and had many strong people. They were able to dominate the world. It was one of the most powerful forces, but even in such a situation, Yi Zichen didn't care. Similarly, there were many birds and beasts that, due to their innate aptitude, were unable to transform into demons, take on human form, and cultivate even though they could absorb quite a bit of spiritual qi. Their own consciousness was also muddled. They only developed in the direction of mutated beasts and ferocious beasts. There were many such examples. After all, there were many demons, but there were even more ordinary birds and beasts. There were countless of them. Therefore, the powerful figures of the demon race gathered together and created a secret technique. This secret technique was the demon awakening technique. What was the so-called awakening demonic art? In truth, it was to use a secret technique to forcefully awaken the intelligence of ordinary birds and beasts that did not have the potential to step onto the path of demonic cultivation. Furthermore, once their intelligence was awakened, they would immediately take on a form similar to human form. However, there was a huge flaw in this form. It was just like what they saw just now. The transformation would not be complete, and they would show their original appearance. For example, if one was originally a rabbit, after being enlightened by the awakening Yao art, their head might not be able to completely transform into a rabbit's head. This kind of flaw was unavoidable. In the world, De Yen was 50, the heavenly Tao was 49. In this world, perfection was not necessarily a good thing. The price of forcefully being enlightened was that the transformation would not be complete. Another point was that their intelligence was hard to increase. In terms of cultivation, their speed would be slower than normal Yao. But compared to not being able to cultivate, this was a very rare matter. Usually, the Yao that had undergone the awakening demonic art were mostly subordinates of some Yao king. When they fought, most of them did not fear death. They were the best subordinates to charge and break through enemy lines. What made the Yao most fond of this technique was that when this awakening demonic art was used, it could enlighten a group at once. It was very convenient, even though there was a taboo when it was used, and it could only be used 3 times a year. Each time, it could not enlighten more than 1,000, but it could not be denied that this was a wondrous secret technique. It was very important to the growth of the Yao race. This awakening Yao art is so wondrous. If our southern barbarians had it, then wouldn't we be able to turn large groups of beasts that could not form intelligence into Yao, and increase the overall power of the southern barbarians? Di Shi Tian's eyes revealed traces of strange light as he thought to himself, "This kind of secret technique is of great help to the development of my forces. Such a little demon, although his aptitude is not very good, but as long as he is willing to work hard, he will have great potential. Also, they have the advantage of numbers." Awakening demonic art was a gremlin. Wasn't there a large gathering at Smoke Wave Lake this time? He could go and see if he could trade for this kind of secret technique. Thinking to himself, he made a decision. He would find the demon awakening art sooner or later and get it. This secret technique was a treasure to him. Our southern barbarians? Medusa lightly shook her head. She raised her head to look at the cloud sea and sighed. You do not know, but according to the records, after the great change of the Yao race in ancient times, the human race rose up. The human race wanted to become the only ruler of the continent. So they took advantage of the great change of the Yao race to launch a sneak attack and killed many experts. They killed countless of our Yao clansmen. Billions of Yao clansmen were massacred. At that time, the Yao clansmen's blood dyed the entire earth red. A rain of blood fell from the sky for 9 days and 9 nights. Ghosts wailed and gods howled. There were countless casualties. The remaining Yao could only retreat into the mountains and preserve the last thread of their bloodline. In this massacre, many of the records and methods of the Yao race were destroyed. Countless secret techniques were lost. There were not even many that knew the awakening Yao art. Up until now, the number of people that know the awakening Yao art can be counted on one hand. It is also very precious. Even if they know, they will not easily tell others. It is very difficult to obtain it. Our southern barbarians naturally do not have such a secret technique. If it wasn't for Sister Shi, I fear that our southern barbarian Yao race would not be as strong as it is today. When Medusa spoke of the bitter past that had been passed down from ancient times, her voice was unusually bleak. Her voice was deep and carried a thread of hatred buried deep in her blood. So there was such a thing. Tian realized, and his suspicions were resolved. All along, he had been puzzled by why the Yao had fallen to such a state of decline. Because, according to his personal experience, the Yao race had been a peerless and powerful race in ancient times. How had they suddenly fallen to such a state? It was hard to understand. Many of the demon race's cultivation methods and secret techniques had been lost. It was impossible that nothing had happened during this period of time. So that's how it is. Tian nodded inwardly. With his intelligence, he had roughly deduced the cause of the decline of the Yao race in the blink of an eye. First, the demon clan had encountered an inexplicable change in the ancient times, causing the elites and experts of the clan to fall at the same time, or even go missing. This change was equivalent to destroying the countless top cultivation techniques and inheritances of the demon clan. This was a top inheritance, but at least there were other cultivation methods that could be passed down, and the Yao race would not completely decline. They could still hold on. However, the human race hit them when they were down at this time. They suddenly launched a campaign to exterminate the Yao race, and instantly killed countless experts of the Yao race who had survived. In the chaos, the Yao race had suffered countless casualties, and countless cultivation methods had been destroyed. In the end, most of the experts were killed, leaving behind some juniors who were not a concern. Under such circumstances, it was difficult for the Yao race to not decline. Those who are not of our race must have a different heart. Tian was a human in his previous life, and in this life, he had a deep understanding of the human race's nature. He was very clear that it was only natural for the human race to do such a thing at that time. It was no wonder. How could there be two tigers on one mountain? If they wanted to be the main character, the Yao race would be the obstacle in front of them. Oh right, there is something I still don't understand. According to what you said, the Yao race suffered heavy losses when we fought with the human race back then, and almost all of our elites were destroyed. At that time, the human race should have no reason to let the Yao race go. How could they allow our Yao race ancestors to hide in the mountains and not care? Tian was very puzzled about this. His curiosity was completely aroused in his heart. He was instinctively curious about the Yao race's past. Medusa frowned slightly and thought for a while. She shook her head in confusion and said, "I am not too sure about this. What I said just now was told to me by Sister She when we were chatting back then. If you want to ask, Sister She might know. Not many of the Yao race know about that period of history." Seeing this, Tian did not ask any more. He only thought about it in his mind, constantly deducing the various possibilities of the ancient times. He wondered what kind of unforeseen event could cause the peerless experts of the Yao race to fall and disappear one after another. He was very curious about that period of history. Vaguely, he guessed that what happened in the ancient times must be related to some big secret of the entire Zijin continent. Otherwise, it would be impossible to cause such a big impact. Come, try the 100 flowers fairy wine that I nourished in the wine god gourd. It should be more than 10 years old now. Tian took out the 100 flowers fairy wine again. The time in the wine god gourd was different. It passed very quickly. 1 year outside was 10 years inside. Could be said to be the best treasure for storing wine. They chatted as they drank the wine. The floating cloud boat could move forward by itself after putting in spirit stones. It could not be infused with Yao Qi. Its speed was as fast as a white steed passing by, leaving a trail of white cloud light in the void. In the blink of an eye, another day passed quietly. The smoky wave lake was already in front of them. It would not take long to arrive. During this period of time, they encountered more and more demons, and all of them were rushing to the smoky wave lake. There were many of them. To be continued. If you want to know what happened next, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 272. The smoky wave lake stretched for tens of thousands of miles. It was so vast that it could no longer be described as a lake. The blue waves connected to the sky. In the early morning, there would be wisps of smoke rising from the lake. It had the artistic conception of purple smoke rising from an incense burner under the sun. A cool breeze blew past, and waves connected the sky and the earth. Thick water vapor constantly spread in the surrounding air. The water in the lake was as clear as the spring water in the mountains. It was very pleasant. Looking at it, one could not help but want to drink a few mouthfuls and taste the sweetness of the lake water. There were large patches of trees around the lake. Looking around, there was a patch of green everywhere. It was full of life. Looking at it gave one an inexplicable sense of comfort. In the middle of the lake, there were some islands of varying sizes. Some were barren and incomparably desolate, with nothing at all. Some were shaded by green trees, with beautiful mountains and clear waters, and were filled with spirit chi. It was a rare cultivation treasure land. The small ones were only a few hundred meters in size. The big ones were hundreds of miles in size, and even thousands of miles in size. One could see them all. However, this was only a lake after all, not a sea. There were not many islands, but they decorated the smoky wave lake, giving the entire lake a different kind of charm. It was like a little green in 1,000 red dots. It had a kind of shocking beauty. In the sky, a huge white cloud drifted quickly from afar. It was extremely fast, as if there was a huge gust of wind pushing it from behind. Not long after, it came to the sky above the smoky wave lake. Its drifting footsteps suddenly stopped, and it stopped moving in midair. Below, one could clearly see a large number of living beings shuttling back and forth. Most of them were rushing to the largest island in the lake. These people who were hurrying back and forth were all from the demon clan. Moreover, they all looked very strange. To say that they were strange was naturally the demon clan who walked around with their original appearance. It was disdainful to say that they were all demons who had undergone the demon awakening technique. There were also various kinds of birds and beasts. They were either stirring up demonic winds or flapping their wings, soaring high in the sky. Although they still had their original appearance, their cultivation levels were not low. Almost all of them were monsters at the level of monsters. They had not gone through the transformation monster tribulation, but their intelligence was not below that of humans. Then, there were the transformed demons. They had the appearance of humans, but the demonic aura emitted from their bodies fully revealed their identity. For these demons who had transformed into demons, regardless of whether they were in their original form or in their true form, as long as they saw them, they would show a respectful expression and make way for them. Demons who had transformed into human form were the rarest of the races. It was not an exaggeration to say that they were the mainstay of the demon race. They were the foundation that supported the existence of the demon race. All the demons headed to the center of the smoky wave lake. Medusa, we're here. This is the smoky wave lake. Tion stood at the bow of the boat and glanced around. He took a deep breath. The freshness mixed with the water vapor immediately swept away the fatigue in his body in an instant. His whole person became much more energetic, and his eyes were full of spirit. He said, "The waves give rise to smoke, and the clouds decorate the lake. This smoky wave lake is really a rare place. Just in terms of spiritual chi, it is several times more abundant than our southern barbarian lands." A sigh came from his mouth. Looking at the lake, it was really beautiful. Not to mention the fresh water vapor, the scenery was even more pleasant. If he lived here, it would really be a celestial life. Looking at the direction that so many demons are heading, the smoky wave island should be in the center. Let's go there together. Medusa casually walked out of the floating cloud boat and landed on the surface of the clear lake. Her feet didn't touch the water, but a wave suddenly rushed out from the bottom of the lake and appeared under her feet. She was naturally supported on the surface of the water, and moved along with the flow of the waves as she moved forward. When Tion saw this, a strange light flashed in his eyes. He knew that this ability to control water was her innate ability. Her original form was that of a snake. When a snake entered the water, it was like a fish in water. As for controlling the waves, it was something that she naturally knew. She did not need anyone to teach her. It was the innate ability of the Water Clan. If other demons wanted to learn, they would have to put in a lot of effort to cultivate. It was impossible to be envious. Xiao Qin waved his hand and put away the floating cloud ship. With a thought, a demonic wind naturally appeared in his body. He stood on the demonic wind and walked side by side with Medusa. The moment they appeared, the many fiend race cultivators in the surroundings immediately revealed respectful expressions. The fiend race cultivators in front also moved to the side, opening up a path for them. There were tens of thousands of demons heading to Misty Wave Island. However, there were very few demons who could transform and condense an inner core. They could be counted on one's fingers. Every one of them was an extraordinary figure. Seeing Tion and Medusa, one riding the wave and the other riding the wind, floating forward, many demons behind them immediately began to talk about it. Another two experts who condensed an inner core. It's only during the opening of the Heavenly Demon Mystery Realm. In normal times, such figures may not be seen even in hundreds or thousands of years. It seems that there will be many experts who have condensed an inner core on the Smoky Wave Island this time. It would be great if we could see the 8 great demon kings of our demon clan. Yes, I heard along the way that many demon brothers have specially rushed here from afar. Moreover, each of them has the strength of a demonic beast. In total, there are probably tens of thousands of them. Even the 8 great demon kings will appear. This is a rare opportunity that may not come by even in 1,000 years. I heard that the Rock Demon King of the 8 great demon kings has an extremely high cultivation base. He has already reached the 4th transformation realm. Not long ago, he broke into a cultivation sect called the Ascension Sect and swallowed thousands of cultivators in one gulp. Then, he spat out a golden flame and burned the entire mountain to ashes. He is really a demon. I don't know if we can see him on the island. That's nothing. I heard that the Tree King, all kinds of things about the demon clan were mentioned by the demons. If one listened carefully, it was not difficult to learn about the recent situation of the demon clan. It was no wonder that none of the demons who came this time had a cultivation base lower than that of a demonic beast. In the current world, demonic beasts were the mainstream strength of the demon clan. What they knew was naturally not to be underestimated. Of course, this had nothing to do with Tion. Riding the demonic wind and drifting with the current, it didn't take long for them to see a huge island on the Misty Wave Lake. The island was so big that it had a radius of several thousand miles. It was like a small continent. It could even form a small kingdom on it. The island was covered with trees and towering mountains. However, most of the land was flat. It was covered with lush green grass. On the grassland, many figures could be seen gathering there. All kinds of voices could be heard, and several towering houses could be seen. It looked very strange. This is the Smoky Wave Island. Tion saw and understood. He knew that the island in front of him must be the Smoky Wave Island he was looking for. He exchanged a look with Medusa and said, "Although there's still some time before the secret realm opens, this is a rare gathering of the demon clan. Let's go up and take a look." She also said that this time, many of our brothers in the demon clan will take out the things that they have accumulated over the years to exchange for what they need. Maybe we can find what we need inside. Let's go up together. Okay. Medusa did not object. This was one of the reasons why they came. Puff! Their bodies swayed slightly, and they landed on the island at the same time. As soon as they appeared, there were many demonic beasts and demons in their original forms in front of them. When they saw Tion and Medusa, their expressions became more respectful. Immediately, there were shrimp soldiers in battle armor who came forward. He said respectfully, "Welcome to the Smoky Wave Island, seniors. I am here to receive you on the island under the orders of the Dragon King. Please go to the quiet room to rest." Dragon King? Tion was surprised. Although he had heard from Chun Shi that there was the Dragon Clan in the Smoky Wave Lake, he did not expect to come into contact with the Dragon Clan's forces so soon. One had to know that among the subordinates of the Dragon Clan, there were two tribes that were the most famous. They were the Shrimp Soldiers and Crab Generals. There was no other reason. These two tribes had a large population and multiplied faster. They were the best tribes to be subordinate. Since the Dragon King is so polite, please lead the way. Tion nodded indifferently. There was no expression on his face, so no one could figure out what he was thinking. At the same time, his body naturally exuded the aura of a superior. This made the shrimp soldier's heart skip a beat. He quickly led the way in front. Along the way, he asked. He also knew that the Dragon Clan really lived in the Smoky Wave Lake and occupied the Smoky Wave Lake. This time, the Heavenly Demon's secret realm opened again, and one of the entrances was on the Smoky Wave Island. This was a grand event that happened once in thousands of years. Strictly speaking, the Dragon Clan and the Demon Clan were of the same origin. Naturally, they would not stop this matter. Instead, they had sent a large number of subordinate. First, they built a few inns on the island. Naturally, ordinary Demon Clan members were not qualified to stay in these inns. They served the experts of the Demon Clan who had transformed into human form. This allowed them to have a place to stay temporarily. They were obviously different from ordinary Demon Clan members. They did not have to eat and drink on the island. This was also a kind of goodwill that the Dragon Clan expressed to the Demon Clan. Along the way, they entered the inn and arranged 2 quiet rooms for Tion and Medusa. After settling them down, the shrimp soldier also left. In the quiet room, Tion pushed open the window and looked at the many Demon Clan members outside. He had a thoughtful look on his face. Along the way, he roughly estimated that the number of Demon Clan members on the island was probably no less than tens of thousands. Moreover, he could also see a large number of Demon Clan members from the Water Clan. They were mixed among the Demon Clan members. There were shrimp soldiers and crab generals stationed in many places to maintain order on the island and prevent fighting and killing. Moreover, many Demon Clan members directly sat on the ground and spread out a large beast skin in front of them. There were all kinds of items on it, including all kinds of materials for refining weapons, spirit ores, and even many strange spiritual herbs. There were a lot of them. If you want to know what will happen next, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author, support the original reading. Chapter 273. With a glance, one could see the spiritual treasures and spiritual herbs emitting bursts of light, as well as the abundant spiritual chi. There were also all kinds of magic tools, magic treasures, and even elixirs. It was a dazzling sight. There were so many that one couldn't help but want to stay in it. It seems that the opening of the secret territory is indeed a large gathering of the Demon Clan. Many Demon Clans have taken out the treasures that they have accumulated for thousands of years to exchange for needed items. There is still some time before the opening of the secret territory. I can take advantage of this opportunity to collect more needed items. Tion's mind quickly turned. The Demon Clan now lived in the deep mountains and forests. On the purple gold mainland there were all kinds of mountain ranges. It could be said that there were countless mountains. Even the most powerful cultivators did not know how big the mainland was. Many mountain ranges were places where ordinary cultivators would not go. However, most of the Demon Clans lived in these mountain ranges. After thousands of years, it was impossible for the powerful demon clans to not have accumulated some resources in the mountain ranges. For example, if there was some kind of spirit mine in the mountain ranges, after thousands of years there would be a huge amount of spirit mine. Or there was some kind of spiritual quenching in the mountains. If carefully cared for, it would be an extremely precious treasure after thousands of years. If taken out for alchemy, it would be a good material. These were all treasures. Moreover, there were many things that were difficult to use. It was just right to exchange for something useful at such a big gathering. There were also many treasures that they did not understand and did not understand the specific use of. Perhaps these strange things were some kind of priceless treasure. After hearing that there was such a gathering, Tion had been secretly looking forward to it. He was not too worried about those refining materials. After all, he was not short of magic weapons now. First, there was the Seven Sins demonic zither, and then there was the Tiger Soul divine weapon. As the saying goes, the number of treasures did not matter, as long as it was suitable and enough. But he had a great interest in all kinds of spiritual treasures of heaven and earth. Previously, he had the opportunity to obtain the wine god's treasure book left behind by the wine god. There were many kinds of spiritual wines recorded in it. Each one had an incomparably magical effect, comparable to elixirs and even better. He had been longing for it for a long time. But the materials needed to brew spiritual wine were not the 5 grains of the secular world, but all kinds of spiritual treasures of heaven and earth and rare spiritual fruits. Under normal circumstances, even brewing a type of spirit wine would be an abnormally difficult task. Collecting all kinds of spiritual medicines, who knew how much energy it would take? But it was different now. At the gathering, it could be said that the demon clan from all parts of the mainland had all gathered on Yen Bo Island. Many of the rarely seen treasures could be found here. It was a great opportunity to exchange for all kinds of spiritual treasures of heaven and earth. If he did not seize it, he would be a fool. Fortunately, as soon as I heard that there was such a gathering, I went back to the valley and plundered the thousands of gourds of monkey wine that Yuan Tian had just brewed. It should not be difficult to exchange spiritual wine for all kinds of spiritual treasures of heaven and earth. Tian looked around and saw a large number of demon clans setting up stalls. In front of the stalls there was an endless stream of figures, all of them wandering around, hoping to find the items they needed. The fragrance emitted by the many spiritual essences of heaven and earth also made him restless. He secretly said, "Later I will also set up a secondary stall. Maybe, after this trip to the secret realm, I can build my herb garden." In his heart, he had already had a complete plan for future development. Part of the plan was to build a herb garden. After all, he was very clear that spiritual treasures of heaven and earth were actually grown by heaven and earth. Every time they matured, it would take a lot of time. Many precious medicinal herbs would take thousands of years to mature. Most of these medicinal herbs were rare and could be counted on one's fingers. If they were used up today, what would they do next time? Therefore, the most important thing was to know how to cultivate and recuperate. When taking spiritual medicines, at least leave the seeds or seedlings to cultivate, so that the spiritual treasures of heaven and earth would not be cut off. Small streams flowed for a long time, so that they would be inexhaustible. Knowing this, naturally, he would not do something that would cut off his future path. The more precious the spiritual treasures were, the more he wanted to grow more of them. This time, not only did he intend to collect spiritual treasures, he also wanted to collect various spiritual seeds of spiritual treasures and plant them. He secretly made a plan in his heart. He did not think too much. Sizing up the quiet room, he saw that it was indeed quite quiet. There was nothing superfluous. There was only a bed, a futon, and a table. There was nothing else. It was really just a place for them to rest and recuperate. Whoosh! He sat down on the praying mat and began to circulate his demonic origin energy. Strands of demonic origin energy shot out from the rank 3 black lotus and into the demonic vein. The demonic origin energy flowed through the demonic vein and nourished his demonic body. Right now, he could only circulate his demonic origin energy through 3 demonic veins. Every time he circulated his demonic origin energy, he would feel extremely comfortable. The surrounding spiritual energy of heaven and earth was immediately guided by the cultivation method. It cheerfully flowed through the countless pores on his body and quickly entered his body. It entered the demon vein and circulated along with the demon essence. Every time it circulated, it entered the demon refining cauldron in the demon mansion and was refined into the purest demon essence. Finally, it fell into the black lotus. It made the light on the black lotus seem even more lively. At the same time, there was a large amount of desire energy that was absorbed into his body through the demon vein and into the black lotus. Unknowingly, the wisps of black gas wrapped around his body and completely covered him inside. Outside, he could not be seen at all. It was very strange. In the black gas there was also a strange and evil aura. It was as if it could devour people at any time. This was the strangeness and horror of the desire energy. Several hours passed. In the afternoon, Tirtian opened his eyes in the black gas. His eyes shone brightly. He opened his mouth and took a deep breath. The black gas around him was immediately swallowed into his stomach like a whale sucking in water. Not a single drop was left. At this moment, his spirit had completely reached its peak. The light in his eyes was also instantly withdrawn, returning to normal. However, the vicissitudes and indifference in his eyes could not be removed. "It's time to go out and do business." He suddenly got up and left the quiet room. Looking at Medusa, he found that she was no longer in the quiet room. Looking at the situation, there was an 80 to 90% chance that she had gone to the gathering outside. Raising an eyebrow, he did not hesitate and immediately left the inn. When they walked outside, they immediately heard a lot of conversations. "Brother, look, this is the 1,000-year-old gloomy sand that I found in the quicksand river after a few hundred years. I won't trade for ordinary things. Do you have 1,000-year-old agarwood? I have 10,000-year-old warm jade I want to trade. Brother, come and take a look at the elixirs I have here. These are my thousands of years of stock." All kinds of trading sounds were heard. It could be seen that the Misty Wave Island was extraordinarily lively now. Most of the people were exchanging various kinds of goods. In front of each stall, there were many brothers of the demon clan. Although the demon clan had cultivated for thousands of years, their minds were not as complicated as that of humans. When trading, there was not so much scheming and scheming. If they succeeded, they would succeed. If they failed, so be it. Moreover, there were subordinates sent by the Misty Wave Dragon clan to maintain order on the island. Therefore, although it was extraordinarily lively, there were no disputes. Many of the demon clan members who saw their own kind chatted enthusiastically. There was a lively scene everywhere. It was indeed a big gathering of the demon clan. Instead of looking for it myself, why don't I wait for it and let others find it for me? I don't have to worry about not being able to sell my monkey spirit wine here. Tirtian walked around and found that there were probably no less than thousands of stalls set up here. If he were to walk around one by one, he might not be able to see all of them even after a day. This would also be quite time-consuming. It was really not a wise choice. After walking around a few times, he found a big tree in a remote place on the Misty Wave Island. Leaning against the tree, he took out a futon under the tree and sat down. Then, he took out a piece of cloth from his storage bag and spread it on the ground. Then, he took out gourds that were slightly glowing from the bag. There were more than 100 of them. These gourds were actually formed from ordinary gourd vines. However, because they were filled with spiritual wine, the spiritual chi in the wine seeped into the gourds, causing the gourds to also have traces of spiritual chi. They revealed a trace of treasure light. They were not Dharma artifacts, let alone Dharma treasures. They were just gourds used to store wine. In each of these gourds there were 2 kilograms of monkey spirit wine. Every sip of this wine was equivalent to several months of bitter cultivation. After refining, the essence produced was incomparably pure. It was comparable to the various medicinal pills taken by core formation cultivators in the cultivation world. It was effective for all levels of the demon clan. It was delicious. This kind of spiritual wine was more precious than medicinal pills. A single gourd was enough to be called a treasure. If one drank all of them, it would not be a problem to increase one's cultivation by 10 years. After taking out these wine gourds, Tirtian pondered and poured out a pile of jade stones from his storage bag. He condensed them with his demonic essence into a jade tablet and engraved a paragraph of demonic text on it. It meant, "Monkey spirit wine, after consumption, can increase one's cultivation by a lot and heal injuries." In exchange for all kinds of spiritual essences, rare treasures, the demonic text was the language of the demon clan. As long as one was a demon, even if one did not recognize it, as long as one took a look, one would naturally understand the meaning expressed. It could be said to be extremely convenient. When he was in the 100 Flowers Valley, Tirtian learned it. After all, he was a demon. How could he not understand the language of the demon clan? Bang! As soon as the jade tablet was done, he threw it directly. The jade tablet landed in front of him with a jade light. Under Tirtian's deliberate efforts, when the tablet landed on the ground, it made a loud sound and burst out with a strong jade light. It was really extraordinary. On the spot, all the nearby demons turned their gazes over. To be continued. If you want to know what happens next, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. I support the author and I support the original readers. Chapter 274. There were tricks to doing business. First of all, one had to be attractive enough. One had to have a bright facade and have the means to attract customers' attention at first sight. Otherwise, if one stayed in a corner and looked shabby, there would be no distinguishing features and no taste. No one would stop their eyes on you for even a moment. Tirtian knew this very well. Therefore, although the place he chose was not a crowded area and he sat down against a tree, he immediately refined a jade tablet. When the jade tablet was refined, he used his demonic essence to activate its own jade light. The jade light was bright and burst out. Naturally, it could be said to be unique on Misty Wave Island. It caused a huge commotion. It attracted the attention of a large number of demons on the spot. This was a small means to attract others' attention. Of course, it was not enough. In this way, it would not be a problem to attract a group of demons. However, if there was no good stuff, it would just be a farce to please the crowd. In the blink of an eye, the crowd would disperse. At this time, what was needed was something that could attract the other party to stay. Tirtian had full confidence in the monkey spirit wine. In this world, there had always been very few people who knew how to brew spirit wine. Moreover, monkey spirit wine was a spirit wine that only monkeys knew how to brew, so it was even rarer. Although the batch in front of him was newly brewed, it contained an unusually large amount of essence. It was the top-grade monkey spirit wine. Moreover, there were 10-year-old, century-old, and even 1,000-year-old spirit wine in the God of Wine gourd. It was a treasure among treasures. As long as he saw something good, he could take it out to exchange. How could he not have the confidence to attract customers with such a treasure? Sure enough, the jade light soared into the sky. Many of the nearby demons gathered towards Tirtian's side. The first to arrive was a demon with a bull's head and a middle-stage demonic beast cultivation. He looked up and glanced at the pile of gourds placed in front of Tirtian, then fell on the jade tablet. Immediately, the information on the jade tablet was transmitted to his mind. Wine in exchange for spiritual essence. Is this spiritual wine? It's the rarest monkey spirit wine. Selling spiritual wine? Is it true? Spiritual wine is more precious than elixirs. I've only heard of it before, but have never seen it. There's spirit wine for sale. Everyone, come over quickly. For a time, all kinds of cries of surprise rang out one after another, calling out to their close friends one after another. The spirit wine was really too rare, and it wasn't a systematic method like alchemy. It could be said to be the rarest. Not only did it have the effects of alchemy, it was also a rare delicacy. When de Chertion saw this, he smiled indifferently in his heart. He reached out and picked up a gourd in front of him. He gently opened the mouth of the gourd. Immediately, bursts of rich wine fragrance wafted out of the gourd and drifted in all directions. A strange fragrance wafted into the air, entering the nostrils of the surrounding demonic beasts. After inhaling deeply, their eyes immediately lit up. The aroma of this wine is too strong. It's so comfortable to smell it. Just one breath and all my fatigue is swept away. This was spirit wine. This was definitely spirit wine. Only spirit wine has such a miraculous power. It smells really good. Just smelling it makes us feel refreshed. If we were to take a sip, we would definitely be in a good mood. That's a pretty good taste. Monkey wine, a spirit wine brewed by monkeys. There's no mistake, this is the smell. The aroma emitted by mortal wine and spirit wine was completely different. The aroma emitted by mortal wine was intoxicating, while the mellow aroma emitted by spirit wine was not only intoxicating, but it could also refresh the mind and increase one's spirit by several times. It had indescribable benefit. There were countless miraculous effects. One could easily tell whether it was mortal wine or spirit wine by just smelling it. Is there a need to doubt it? Look, this wine was brought out by the demonic beast king. How could it be fake? An old fox with a fox head on his head looked at de Chertion and immediately said respectfully, "Junior Hushon greets the demonic beast king. May I know how Senior Demonic Beast King would like to exchange for this spirit wine?" De Chertion's appearance was that of condensing an inner core. This appearance was the best guarantee. How could an expert who had condensed an inner core cheat on such matters? Spiritual essence of heaven and earth, and all kinds of rare treasures can be exchanged for spirit wine according to their value. No spirit stones accepted. Sakra said in a deep voice. Everything that was traded here could be said to be precious items that were accumulated through untold hardship. It was impossible to measure them with spirit stones. Anything that could be bought with spirit stones wouldn't be treasures. They belonged to the ordinary category. Here, all the demonic beasts traded with each other. Most of them exchanged for items that they wanted. Of course, these items belonged to the precious category. Spiritual essence of heaven and earth? Hushan's eyes turned and he patted the storage bag at his waist. Suddenly, a spiritual light flashed and a jade box appeared in his hand. The jade box had a gentle color and looked very comfortable. It was made of high-quality jade. He carefully opened the jade box. A strange fragrance wafted out from the box and immediately attracted the attention of the surrounding demons. When the jade box was fully opened, they saw that in the box there was a spiritual grass that still had its roots and was still very fresh. This spiritual herb had 3 segments. At the joint of each segment there were 3 orchid-like leaves. There were a total of 9 leaves in the spiritual herb. Strangely, these leaves were not like ordinary leaves. They appeared for a while and then suddenly turned illusory. It looked very strange. This is a spiritual herb that I waited for to mature for more than 300 years on the mountain. It's called the illusory spirit herb. There are 9 leaves here. When you are in danger, pluck 1 leaf and put it in your mouth. It will make your body turn illusory in an instant. Not only can it make you invisible, even if something rushes over, it will pass through like air. It won't be affected at all. No Dharma treasure or Dharma spell can hurt you. Hushan introduced the spiritual herb in his hand carefully. According to his description, this illusory spirit herb was really amazing. It was definitely a good treasure to save one's life in times of danger. What a good spiritual essence, many demonic beasts exclaimed in unison. They looked at the illusory spirit herb with burning eyes. There were 9 leaves. 1 leaf at a time, which meant that it could be used 9 times. It could save one's life 9 times. It was not an ordinary item. It had to be said that the demonic beasts who came to Misty Wave Island this time were all good stuff. I wonder if this illusory spirit herb can be exchanged for this monkey wine. Hushan looked at Di Shirtian cautiously. Di Shirtian was already overjoyed when Hushan introduced it. He thought to himself that he had made a good start this time. However, he did not show it on his face. When doing business, the most taboo thing was to show one's face. If he showed an expression of desire, the other party would most likely estimate the price. Something that could be bought with 10 yuan might not be bought with 100 yuan. Therefore, there was no other expression on his face. He just nodded slightly and said, "Yes. How many gourds of spiritual wine do you want to exchange for?" Each gourd of spiritual wine here can increase one's cultivation by at least 10 to 20 years. It can also heal injuries, restore demonic chi, and so on. There won't be any hidden dangers. Hushan's eyes lit up. Spiritual wine was very rare in this world. Drinking it could increase one's cultivation and had many other magical effects. It was definitely a rare treasure. Therefore, he was not sure how much he wanted to exchange. After thinking for a while, he said hesitantly, "Senior, I want to exchange for 30 gourds, no, 20 gourds will do." Hushan was a fox. Foxes had always been known for their cunning and shrewdness. However, he had never been to the human world and did not have a cunning mentality. How would he know the market? Ha! Di Shirtian heard this and could not help but smile. He did not want to be a black-hearted businessman. He gave Hushan the biggest number and said, "Since you want 30 gourds, we'll do it at 30 gourds. The goods are sold. You can keep them." After that, he waved his hand and picked out 30 gourds from the pile in front of him. He placed them in front of Hushan and took the jade box with the illusory spirit herb. The goods were sold. A deal was completed on the spot. When Hushan heard this, he was overjoyed. He hurriedly put the 30 gourds of spiritual wine into his bag of holding and left happily. The rarer something was, the more valuable it was. Nowadays, spiritual wine was the rarest item in the world. It was rare to see such a thing, so it was only natural that the other demonic beasts would value it. Therefore, no one thought that there was anything wrong with exchanging 30 gourds of spiritual wine for illusory spirit herb. They all looked on enviously as Hushan left. Spiritual wine was not something that just anyone could taste. "Senior, I have a dragon fruit." "What's a dragon fruit?" "What I have is a treasure. This is an immortal peach sapling. And an immortal peach." "Senior, look at my ghostface peach tree. I have a jadeite fruit." "What jadeite fruit?" "I have a blood bodhi tree. I even brought a blood bodhi vine." Seeing that Hushan really used the spiritual essence to exchange for 30 gourds of monkey wine, the scene immediately exploded. Thinking about it, this was a gathering that only happened once in thousands of years. Many of the demon race had already prepared for this gathering. It should be known that the demon race had an extraordinary perception of all kinds of spiritual essences of heaven and earth. Most of the time, they were the guardian spirit beasts of these spirit herbs. They were waiting for the spirit herbs to mature. Every demonic beast had accumulated quite a few precious spirit herbs. Their thirst for spirit wine caused them to immediately take out the various spirit herbs they had. Ordinary spirit herbs could only be exchanged for a small amount of spirit wine, but precious spirit herbs could be exchanged for a lot more. Each precious spirit herb could be exchanged for dozens or even hundreds of gourds worth of spirit wine. This was an exchange of goods. As long as both parties were satisfied with each other, they wouldn't care too much about who was more precious and who was cheaper. As long as both parties were happy, it was fine. Once the goods were exchanged, everyone was happy. For a moment, the scene was extremely heated. The spirit wine that de Chertion had brought was exchanged for in large quantities. Many of the demonic beasts who liked to drink immediately drank a few mouthfuls of the wine, then hugged the gourds tightly as they walked out. This caused many of the demonic beasts to want more. To be continued. If you want to know what happens next, please go to www.chidian.com and read more chapters. Support the author, support the original reading. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.